can you please start my video? Hi, how are you?
Yes, I will. Hold on.
Thank you very much.
I'm just getting on Facebook. There you are. Okay. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay. 9 minutes.
Hello.
Welcome, Cesar. Please remember that we are live on Facebook as we speak.
Cesar, is that the Ritz-Carlton?
Pardon?
Is that the Ritz-Carlton?
No, it's a little 2-star cockroach place.
We're on Facebook, folks.
No, not really. No cockroaches. It's all right place. It's all I could find.
League of California Cities.
Good evening, City Attorney Deborah Mall.
Hey guys, how are you?
How are you?
Good. First beautiful day here at my house today. I had to work all day, but it was beautiful outside. And the fog just came in.
Everybody knows you've been assigned here to find Costello's rat. They won't find a leak as much as you do. Like I said, 2 days ago, my guy damn near found out who
Mayor, the
custodian
city clerk asked for Trish to cover it tonight. I'm not sure why, but. that's me.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Before we go on, is she all up to date on that new law and what you guys need to do to qualify to still have meetings on Zoom? 'Cause I
haven't
knew
talked to her
I knew
since-
she was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't spoken to her since the bill was signed.
I can't hear you.
I haven't spoken to her since the bill was signed. Can you hear that?
Okay, because you have to make some kind of declaration, or there has to be something in your county, your health officer making a declaration. So I just want to make sure, if I'm gone on vacation, then Bob in my office is up to date on all the rules if you guys need help.
Okay, thanks.
It's just kind of a checklist, and I'm sure your city clerk, knows that checklist. So, but
I do mention that in the city manager slides, so we could talk about it there if you want, Deb.
oh, we don't have to talk about it. I just want to make sure that you guys know, you guys are on board of what you need to do. So, I can walk you through it, or Bob can walk you through it. But I just assumed, that your city clerk, was somebody that was super on top of it. So,
Yes, okay.
hi, Mary. How are you feeling?
I'm getting there.
Good.
It's been a long road to recovery, but I
Poor
am.
thing.
Thank you for asking. Oh,
But Deb, we have people at the door. I wonder if they want into this meeting. I'm sitting in the council chamber. It's posted as Zoom only. I can hand them an agenda and they can go log on by Zoom. Hold on, let me do that. I think that was a high school student that needs credits or something. So she was happy to get it.
Oh, huh. Did you sign without making her go through the whole meeting?
Hey, we're live. Don't answer that.
her teacher's on. So so Mayor Jordan, where are you? You're not home.
I am not. I can neither confirm nor deny where I am at this moment.
I can tell you're not home.
Okay, it is 6 p.m. and we are still waiting on a council member.
Right, Councilmember Freeman is traveling to a medical appointment in the San Francisco area early tomorrow morning, and he was going to try and call in by phone, Mayor. So hopefully he'll be
Okay.
able to join us.
Okay, so he will be excused until he can come in.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, great. It is 6 p.m. Welcome to the regular City Council meeting of the City of San Juan Bautista, September 21st, 2021. We are just in the National Hispanic Heritage Month, which started on the 15th of September and goes through October 15th. Welcome all. Council Member Edge, it is so nice to have you back. Will you please lead us in the pledge?
Oh, I'd love to. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
Of
States
the
of
United
America,
States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and
liberty and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. Thank you very much. Deputy City Clerk, will you do a roll call, please?
Yes, can you hear me? Let me make sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so we have Mayor Jordan,
Present.
Vice Mayor Flores,
Here, present.
Councilmember Edge,
Here.
Councilmember Friels.
Here.
Great. Councilmember Freeman is excused for the time being.
Correct. Thank you
Thank
very
you. We have a
much.
quorum.
Thank you. All council members are participating remotely pursuant to the governor's executive order number N2920 in order to minimize the spread of COVID-19 virus. Public comments can be made during the meeting by watching the meeting on Zoom at https://zoom.us/j/8332641-872 or calling in at 1-669-900-6833 and enter webinar ID 833-261-8725. Public comment will be taken on agenda items before action is taken by the council. When I open public comment for the item you wish to speak, press *9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand or use the raise your hand icon to be identified. When called to speak, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comment. Deputy City Clerk, are there any public comments on items not on the agenda?
Don't see any hands raised, so I would say no.
Thank you very much. Consent items. All matters listed under the consent agenda may be enacted by one motion, authorizing actions indicated for those items so designated. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member of the City Council, a staff member, or a citizen. Are there any council members who wish to remove a consent item?
No, not I.
Vice Mayor Flores
No,
and Councilmember Friels.
No, thank you.
Thank you. I do have a comment on GHNI, just the spelling of my name. Other than that, I'm fine with everything. Are there any public comments? Does the public wish to remove any items?
Mayor, I'm struggling. I think our public is having trouble getting in, and the same with Councilmember Freeman. I can't
Okay.
find a password to the Zoom. Trish, do you know if there's a password to the Zoom number I can share with people? It's not on the agenda, apparently.
No, I don't usually set them up with password, but
I have the passcode, Dawn, if you need it.
There's a webinar ID right on the agenda.
It's 169275, Dawn. 169275.
Okay. Let me pass that on to a few people. I know that a possible public speaker just tried to reach me.
On an item not on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
It is. Did you
I
need a
just got a
password?
couple instant messages about that too.
Okay. So, okay, do you have something to write with? 169275. So go to the link in the agenda and the password is 169275. Okay.
And if
Okay.
anybody else out there is listening to this live on Facebook and is wishing to get in, the passcode is 169275.
Okay, and I need to send one to the county OES real fast.
There are two hands in the public raised. I'm not sure what for, though.
Okay, well, that takes care of the people who know how to reach us. We may have to go back and, we have to go we may have to go back and reopen public comment.
Okay. No, just texting.
She's adding
more
it to
people who are
Facebook, too.
texting me. 833-261-8725. Okay, in order to make a comment on Zoom, you can either raise your hand icon, or press *9 on your phone when asked to speak. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comment now open. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Yes, I have Eric Gordon.
Okay, if we can let him in.
How do you let him in?
There he is. Welcome, Eric. Unmute yourself, please. You have 3 minutes.
You'll need to unmute yourself.
Eric Gordon, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself. Can we unmute them?
I have asked him to.
You just lost him.
There
Hello.
we go. Hi,
Hello?
Eric. How you doing? Hi, welcome.
Sorry.
That's
I
okay.
haven't used this. I haven't used it on my iPhone yet. We have no internet service at home, so we had to drive a few miles away to get service through our phone. So,
Welcome.
okay, thanks. You can hear me okay?
We can. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk today. My name is Marina Gordon. As many of you know, I'm a big animal advocate, and my husband and I work with the city to control the feral cat problem in town. We also help with stray and dumb dogs and occasionally injure wildlife. Since there is no animal control in San Juan Bautista, this keeps us quite busy. Recently, a town resident made me aware of a homeless person in town who keeps a rooster locked up in his car all day and all night. In my opinion, this is animal abuse and something needs to be done about it. It was very hot yesterday and I observed the rooster locked in a very hot car near the Valero gas station. When I attempted to speak with Chris, the homeless person who lives in the abandoned car, he became very aggressive and verbally abusive. I understand he appears to be mentally ill, but he also appears to be potentially dangerous as well. As soon as he confronted me in a threatening manner, I quickly left. Obviously, an unstable homeless person living in an abandoned car is an issue in itself, but I'm concerned about the rooster forced to live in a car. I can add that this rooster does not appear to be in good health. What can be possibly be done about this?
Pardon me.
Thank you for your comments. We can address this. The city will address it.
I can speak to it quickly, Mayor. I asked
Go
the
ahead,
sheriff.
thank you.
I asked the sheriff to go out a week ago Monday, and I don't know if they were able to get out there or not. I had 2 more requests this morning, including Councilmember Friels, and the sheriff said that he would go out today. So I'm not sure. It is a violation of the penal code. That's animal abuse. And so we asked the sheriff to intervene. Officer Brown, our code enforcement officer, is off duty until tomorrow. So Officer Brown had been working with the sheriff on this very issue until he had left about 10 days ago on vacation. So I hope to be able to address it first thing in the morning. Sorry for the delay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, we have a telephone number person with their hand raised if you'd like to speak. And I believe she's still muted.
Hi,
Welcome.
welcome. State your name, please.
Hi, thank you. This is Nancy Carlisle calling.
Hi, welcome, Nancy.
Hi, who am I speaking to, please?
This is the mayor, Leslie Jordan.
Hi, Leslie. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. So I, of course, I'm a resident of the area, longtime resident, and I wanted to address the issue of the new flag policy. I read through that. I read the City of San Juan Bautista proclamation recognizing LGBT Pride Month in May of 2021. I read that several times, and I go to the bottom line, which I think is very important for all of us. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of San Juan Bautista, on behalf of all residents of the city, does hereby proclaim June 2021 as Pride Month in the City of San Juan, and urges all residents to respect and honor our diverse community and celebrate and build a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance. I agree. So I read that proclamation over and over, and I cannot find any mention of flying a flag in there. And I'm wondering who it was who made that decision and who approved of the flag being flown on the same flagstaff as the U.S. flag, which in my research, I understand the U.S. flag code stipulates that flags of states, cities, or localities may be flown on the halyard under the U.S. flag. I've inquired about that with the city manager, Don. Thank you very much, Don. and asked him under what authority a non-state, non-city, non-local flag, locality flag was being flown on the same halyard as the U.S. flag. And he said that he didn't have that information to give me. He couldn't cite any authority on that. And he acknowledged my question and actually pondered, would it be better to fly that flag on a separate flag staff? So we had an amicable discussion about that, and he promised to discuss the matter with the mayor, which I think he did, Mayor, and you and he both called me at a time when I was, of course, expecting you to call, but that's fine. And that there were, you, Mayor Jordan, told me that there was a precedent for flying another flag on the U.S. flag staff other than a nation, a city, or a locality. And you evidenced that by the city of Napa, which of course was anecdotal. And you promised to follow up with some detailed information about what other authorities under which that decision was made. I didn't get anything from that. So on July the 1st, I met with the city manager and asked him that he respectfully fly my flag that I proffered to be flown. And I'd like that flown from September 22nd through October 31st under the same authority that was afforded for the previous flag. My
Your 3
flag
minutes are up.
Okay. I suppose I should talk faster, but
Thank
you
you
get the
very
gist.
much. Do
Do-
we have any other?
do we get an answer to that question? Or, I mean, who approved and authorized a flag that was not national, city, or other locality to fly on the same halyard as the U.S. flag? Hello? Hello?
So this is the city attorney here, and we did a comprehensive staff report when this policy was passed. And I'm jumping in here if the mayor allows me to, but it's California Government Code Section 431 through 434 governs what can be flown on the flagpole.
And does that trump then the U.S. flag code? I'm just wondering.
So
I'm not an attorney.
It's in conformance with the U.S. flag code, and there's some guidelines. If you go to www.usa.gov/flag, that gives you the guidelines for flying flags with the federal U.S. flag.
And in my research at the U.S. flag code, looking at the codes, the U.S. codes, I couldn't find anything other than what I just stated. Flags of cities, states, or localities.
So maybe
furthermore, let me say one other thing, please. That is that I put in my request on July the 1st. Well, actually, I requested the authority back in June when I first saw the other flag, but I did request my flag to be flown, and I did that in writing on July the 1st. That precedes your policy, your flag policy, ex post facto, on July the 13th, in a closed session for which we had no prior notification.
So this is the right time to argue, but there was notification. It wasn't done in closed session. It was done in open session, and a policy was passed with a staff report, which was noticed, etc.
There are no minutes for that report, and I haven't seen anything. Excuse me, you're right. It was not a closed session. It was called a special session. Absolutely, got that. Still, no public notice, and nobody even knew that it was coming down the pike. And as a matter of fact, I had been in contact with both the city manager and the mayor prior to July the 13th, discussing the issue that I would like my flag flown, and nobody mentioned to me that there was a special session or a flag policy or anything else in the works, because I certainly would have paid attention to that. The next thing I know is on July the 16th, I got a letter from the city manager enclosing the new flag policy that had been passed on July the 13th.
Thank you very much for your comments. As our city attorney stated, this is not the time to debate this. We can put it on an agenda item in the future. We appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any other comments?
No, there are no other. Oh, Sophia just raised her hand.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Sophia. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I just wanted to talk about, bless you, about the 2 abandoned cars of the what Marina was speaking about with the first caller. So my cousin lives across the street from there, and she was telling me that this man's out there with these abandoned vehicles that are not registered. The tags are expired. And he's very rude and just not approachable. So I just told her I'll just drive by and ask him if he wanted to give up the chicken, or, if he wanted me to take the chicken to, give him a better home instead of him living in the car. And he basically lost his mind. And I told my, the chicken needs to breathe. It's the windows weren't down, and he said the door was open. The door was not open. So I know he has some type of mental health issues, and you can literally see the chicken's feathers were just, I don't know if chickens sweat or not, but they were very, very oily. So he, you could see it was hot. He was in distress. So I told my cousin, I'm like, God, that's terrible. And she said she had already spoken to the sheriff, and the sheriff told her he lets the chicken out. And my cousin says he never leaves that chicken out, and he never lets it out, because I've standed out here for 4 hours before to see if he did, and he never did. So it's just not fair to that poor rooster that he's stuck in that car where he shouldn't be there. He needs to be, somewhere else where it's not, a car is not where he needs to be. That's just, the bottom line. And obviously, those cars shouldn't be there either, because they're not registered and they're parked on city streets. So that's just my 2 cents. I just wanted to say something, because it's really sad to see. And maybe some people don't understand, but it's something I haven't been able to sleep for 2 days about. So I figured I'd, come on here and mention it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. And as our city manager stated earlier, the sheriff has been notified, and as of this moment, we have not heard back from him. Thank you for your comments. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any further public comments?
Yes, Yolanda Delgado.
Thank you very much. Ms. Delgado, welcome. Unmute yourself. There you go. Hi, how are you doing?
Go ahead, Tina.
Hi. I'm calling in. I live right there on Mussolini, and I see this homeless man with his poor chicken in the car, 100 degrees outside, and the chicken does not look healthy at all. And I think it's inhumane that he has to suffer like this. He says he lets it out every once in a while, but that's no way for a chicken to live in a car. So I think somebody should address this, and some other people have asked about it, and nothing gets done. And just because he's homeless, the chicken doesn't need to be homeless, because there's a lot of people that will take it. So if you guys can address this, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
And that was not Yolanda Delgado, that was Tina. She couldn't get on because they didn't have a code on that.
Understood. Thank you very much for helping out.
Okay.
Deputy City Clerk, do we have anybody else?
No.
Thank you very
Don't
much.
see any new hands raised.
Okay. Welcome, Councilman Freeman.
Thank you.
We are on the consent items. Do you have anything that you would like to be pulled?
No.
Thank you very much. I don't remember if we did public comment on this or not.
We didn't.
Okay, is Deputy City Clerk, do we have any public comment on consent items?
No, there are no hands raised, and I did not receive anything in the mail.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry, just a moment. 2 hands went up. They want to speak to a particular item. Okay, the first one, telephone number ending in 1602, I'll let you in. You'll unmute yourself.
Hi, welcome. Please unmute yourself and state your name for the record.
Yeah, hi, my name's Kip Melkert, and I'm a resident of San Juan Bautista. I just heard some lady, Nancy, talking about flags.
Hi, I'm sorry, we're on the consent items. If you would like to discuss any items on the consent agenda, we have closed public comment on items not concerning,
Okay.
not on the agenda. Thank you very much. Trish, do we have any other hands raised?
Yes, I have a telephone ending in 6540, and I'll let you in now.
Thank
You'll
you very
unmute
much.
yourself.
Welcome. State your name, please.
Nancy Carlisle.
Hi, Nancy. Is this on the consent agenda?
Well, it was at one point on a consent agenda, but
If it is no longer on the consent agenda, we are on the consent agenda right now. We have closed public comment. So if you would like to address something that's on the consent agenda, we can discuss that. Do we have any other comments on the consent agenda?
No, their hands are raised.
Thank you very much.
We were trying to.
May I please have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent items.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councilmember Friels. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Edge,
Yes.
Councilmember Flores,
Please unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Councilmember Friels,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes, with the name changes, please.
I will, certainly. All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Presentations, proclamations, informational items, and reports. 4A, Jacob's Heart Proclamation recognizing Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Honoring Jacob's Heart's Children's Cancer Support Services and declaring September 2021 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in the city of San Juan Bautista. Whereas the character of our community is revealed in how we treat our most vulnerable. And whereas each day 1 in every 40 children in the United States will be diagnosed with cancer. And whereas cancer remains the leading cause of death by disease among children more than asthma, diabetes, cystic fibrosis, congenital anomalies, and AIDS combined. And whereas during the COVID-19 crisis, Jacob's Heart has been keeping medically fragile children and families housed, fed, and emotionally supported by steadfastly adhering to the following commitments. Parents of children with cancer and other serious illnesses will be relieved of financial fears and be able to focus attention on their children. No child undergoing intensive treatment in our community will be homeless. Families of seriously ill children will not experience food insecurity during and after the pandemic, and no seriously ill child in our community will ever miss a medical appointment because of lack of transportation. And Whereas Jacob's Heart holds the memories and honors the legacies of hundreds of children from our local community who have been lost to cancer, ensuring their precious memories will never be forgotten. And whereas the oncology department at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital at Stanford has worked closely with Jacob's Hearts for the past 22 years as a trusted community partner in providing family-centered care that addresses the emotional, practical, and financial struggles of families of children with cancer in San Juan Bautista. And whereas it is important for all San Juan Bautista residents to recognize the impact of pediatric cancer on families within our community and honor the lives of children in our community whose lives have been cut short by cancer. Now, therefore, I, Leslie Q. Jordan, Mayor of the City of San Juan Bautista, do hereby declare September 2021 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in the City of San Juan Bautista, and do hereby honor Jacob's Heart's Children's Cancer Support Services for outstanding support to our community and acknowledge the organization's contributions to childhood cancer awareness. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody accepting that?
I let them know that it was being read and they did not, they responded, thank you, but they did not say that anybody would be present. We read this one every year. I'll make sure that they get the
Thank you very much.
proclamations.
Thank you. 4B, presentation on the multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan update by San Benito County Office of Emergency Services, Manager Chris Monago. Chris?
Hi, this is Chris Mangiano. Thank you.
Welcome. Sorry for the mispronunciation.
No problem. I would like to introduce our consultants from Haggerty Consulting, who I believe Julia is on the call, possibly with Michelle. It may just be Julia, but I'd like to introduce her to speak about the plan and what we're doing and how we appreciate your partnership with this. There she is. Hi, Julia. Thanks for joining.
Hi, thank you, Chris. Can everybody hear me?
Welcome. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us present today. Would it be okay if I shared my screen quickly for a short presentation? Okay. I think I'm unable to screen share, which is also okay.
Nope, we can get you in.
Here you go. There you go, Julia. You should be set now.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for making time for tonight. As Chris said, my name is Julia Devatsis, and I am one of the consultants supporting San Benito County and the participating jurisdictions multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan update. We've been working on this plan for almost 9 months now, and just wanted to take some time today to provide an update on where we are in the process. So I wanted to start with a quick hazard mitigation planning overview. So the purpose of hazard mitigation plans is to reduce the loss and damage to life, property, and infrastructure through strategic planning regarding hazards and how they may impact the county and participating jurisdictions. In this planning process, the participating jurisdictions are the county, San Juan Bautista, the city of Hollister, Sunnyside County Water District, and San Benito County Water District. The benefits of hazard mitigation planning range. In addition to reducing the impacts of those hazards, it's an effective investment in communities' future sustainability and resilience. And by having a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan, the jurisdictions become eligible for certain federal mitigation funding opportunities. The planning process is also an opportunity to educate the community regarding hazard risks and engage the community in the planning process. The sections of the hazard mitigation plan are dictated directly by FEMA. So the plan that will be produced will align with these FEMA requirements, as well as any state-specific requirements that Cal OES has laid out. There are 4 core components of the planning process. First is organizing the planning process and resources, which we did early in the plan by figuring out how we were going to engage the community and core stakeholders. Then we assessed the risk of the community to 11 different hazards and how those hazards may impact core community assets such as power lines or communications infrastructure. We then developed a mitigation strategy, which is really the core of the plan. This included a mitigation strategy workshop, which was held in July. And then this last piece is adopting and implementing the plan, which also includes a stakeholder and a public review period before it being sent to FEMA. The 11 hazards that were selected for the plan are based on the previous hazard mitigation plan, as well as the state's. They're categorized here into 4 different sections, and each hazard is looked at to understand where it might occur in the county, the extent to which it may have an impact, the frequency that the hazard may occur in the future, and then also the types of impacts it may have on the county. As I mentioned before, the kind of heart of this plan and this effort is the mitigation strategy, which establishes the community's approach to mitigation, including goals that guide these activities and specific projects, and it combines the efforts that have gone on over the last few months. So currently we are about to kick off our stakeholder review period, which will start sometime in the next few weeks. After we've received that feedback from various government stakeholders, we will update the plan and it will be put out for public review for a 30-day public period. Then we will address any of the feedback that we collect during that time and then send the plan off to the state and then FEMA to be approved. So as I mentioned before, kind of our next steps here is we'll be sharing the plan with different jurisdiction leadership, and then it'll be placed out for public review. Our plan review meeting for those stakeholders will be tomorrow actually, and then we will be having a public review webinar that anybody can be able to join sometime in early October. Chris, I want to pass it back over to you. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't, thank you. You covered it, but we're available for any questions if the board has any. The council, excuse me.
Thank you very much. Any comments questions, comments, concerns from council? Council Member Edge?
Thank you. No, I don't have any questions, or I would just like to thank Chris and Julia for the presentation. Very nicely done.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Flores? Please unmute yourself.
No comments.
There you go. Thank you very much. Councilmember Friels?
No, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman? Please unmute yourself. John, please unmute yourself. Councilmember Freeman, can you unmute yourself? Sorry, we missed the whole thing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you both very much for attending. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative.
Thank you, and thank you, City Manager Reynolds, for inviting us, and we look forward to presenting you with the final product.
Thank you. Looking forward to
just
that.
real quick, I just wanted to thank Chris and her team.
Absolutely. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. 4C, Treasurer's Report and Monthly Financial Statement by the City Treasurer, Michelle Sabathia. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone. All right, so we're going to jump into the financials. It's going to be a little bit different, so if you have questions, feel free to ask at the end. So we're jumping into the financials. Just before we jump into it, a quick note. We did close out our previous fiscal year, so now we're jumping into our new fiscal year, which means that what I'm going to be reporting on is for the first month of our fiscal year, which is now for July. So it's going to be for July what you're going to be hearing. Now, if we start off with the general fund, as of the end of July, our net effect currently is a positive balance of $1,000. The month-over-month change was a decrease of $180,000. So what does that mean? That means that the decrease relates because the decrease is related to the start of the fiscal year, which represents only 1 month of the activity, whereas the decrease is coming from the change is coming from last month, which is a representation of 12 months. So that's what we're seeing the difference on. And then if we're jumping into what the expenditures are specifically for July, we'll see that we paid out our normal vendors for our warrant listing. And a couple that stood out that I wanted to just mention was the city of Hollister, which is our quarterly payment for the fire contract. And then we had Abbott's Pro Power, which was a generator that was purchased and was budgeted for under the sewer and water. This expense came in under budget and saved us about $8,000, so that was a bonus. That's good. Good job, Don. And then we had our Cypress Water, which is for our sewer operations. You'll notice that this was slightly higher in the month of July. The reason for this was because we had backdated invoices from prior months. So we've contacted our vendors so that they are billing us up to date so that we're not having to do catch up, which is why we're seeing a bigger impact this month. And then finally, our Meritage payment today is the last payment for September went out, so that's great. So we're done there, so that's a bonus. So that's it for the general fund. I'm going to make my way down. For the Water Enterprise Fund, as of the end of July, our net effect is currently a positive balance of $46,000. The month-over-month change was a decrease of $458,000. So as I stated previously, the decrease is related to the start of the fiscal year, which represents only 1 month of activity. The revenues are in line with what we budgeted, right around 8%. And on the expenditure side, I would say that there's no new callouts. What you're going to see come in through the pipeline will just be the allocation of that generator, which we're going to be moving that expense for the expenditure there. For the Sewer Enterprise Fund, as of the end of July, the net effect currently is the positive balance of $49,000. And again, the month-over-month change was a decrease of $221,000. And just as a refresher, the decrease relates again to the beginning of the fiscal year, which is just 1 month of activity, so nothing to be alarmed there. And the revenues are also in line with the expectation. We're looking at right around 8%. And on the expenditure side, I would say that there's nothing big and material. We did have some chemical testing as well, so I wanted to go ahead and call that out. And that's pretty much all I have right now. So let me know if you have questions.
Thank you very much. Council members, questions, comments, concerns? Council Member Edge?
No, don't have any questions. Thank you, Michelle. As always, you do a great job.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Flores?
No comments. Thank you very much. Good report.
Thank you. Council Member Friels?
Thank you, Michelle. No comments, no questions.
Thank you very much. Council Member Freeman?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. You answered all of my questions.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments on this?
I have to unmute myself. No, I don't see any hands raised.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. City Manager's report. Unmute yourself, please.
I'm sharing my screen real quick, as I usually do. Thank you. I just want to let the council know that I'm continuing to get texts. Rochelle is writing that things are all fixed. I don't know how they broke. I'm telling you, the Zoom is sometimes a mystery. We use the same exact process as we always do, but today it's different. So I apologize to the public and to the city council. This is a struggle for me to be answering texts and trying to pay attention to our meeting at the same time. But hopefully from here out we'll be fine. So I'm not going to dwell on it. Thank you, Chris. I just want to say Chris was magnificent during the heart of the COVID. You know, a year or so ago, she was thrown into the acting director position, and she really helped keep the whole county together. My hat's off to her. I have a ton of respect for the work she does. So we're glad to have her on board as the permanent director now, moving forward.
Nice.
So real quick, the roundabout. I thought we were going to have everything signed and in place today. The goal is October 4th. We still have an issue between the property owner to the east and the Meritage. And I think we have a fix for that. I should have a proposal tomorrow that should help remedy any more concerns. So I hope that a roundabout at La Venino and First Street is ready to break ground October 4th. Unnecessary delays and unnecessary concerns. Don Chapin's waiting with the shovel in hand. California legislation update. The governor signed a number of bills this past week. One of the biggest ones is SB 9. Cesar, you'll hear about this, I'm sure. You're up at the League California Cities Conference. It allows a single family lot to be subdivided into 4 lots. And that's just a summary without the local government's discretion. There's a lot more to come on that and potentially lawsuits. The League of California Cities adamantly was against that because it removed the discretion from local government on how land is used in our cities. So that's a big issue right now that we'll watch and see how that new law comes to fruition. And then the second law, sponsored by Assemblymember Rivas, AB 361, the city attorney was referencing this. It allows a continuation of distance public meetings after the expiration of the executive order December 30th, 2021. And the city attorney referenced declarations and things that we need to do in order to make that effective. So we'll make sure that we're in place because a quick status on our upgrades to our city hall and then council chambers. I didn't write this into my report, but we've had our IT company now confer with our technical advisors. We should be moving ahead on those acquisitions, on those purchases. I can get you a more thorough report by Friday, but we are moving ahead to get the Zoom meetings and live meetings to happen together. So next time, if you have a problem with a Zoom passcode, just come down and visit us. I hope that's the case. We're going to make that happen. I did present to the council our American Rescue Plan Act funds that we hope to receive about $500,000. And we would have some money left over, and what would the council's priorities be? To that end, the focus was seemingly seniors and youth. And so we did have more than one meeting with the school district and other stakeholders to talk about fencing the basketball courts there. I know that that's an old topic, but the superintendent is very amenable to that idea. So hopefully we can come back and with a recommendation soon for the council and how to begin using these monies. In the meantime, we're waiting for the Federal Treasury's final rule, which talks about how to report the funds and track the funds. So before we start cutting any checks for fencing and basketballs, we want to make sure that we know what the final rules are. So most of the cities are kind of on a holding pattern, waiting for the Federal Treasury, just a little longer, I hope. The infrastructure bill, it was reported by the International City Managers Association that the House of Representatives wanted to get the infrastructure bill signed by the end of September. Gosh, if that happened, it could mean wonderful things for our 2 big infrastructure projects in water, which I'll wait till later in the agenda to discuss. We had good interviews. Thank you, Treasurer Sabathia, and our CPA, Wendy Cummings and Trish, interviewing several candidates for our office assistant. And I think we have good candidates to review. I'll be meeting with one tomorrow, so I'll keep you posted as we get closer to filling that position. The Veruti and the park at Franklin Circle, they are out to bid as of last Friday. and the bids are due October 13th. I got a correction from the city engineer, and construction to begin in November. So these are Proposition 68 funded, and I'll show you later in the slide how California Consulting is helping us obtain that funding. But very excited to report that Veruti and Franklin Circle Parks are out. And we have the Luck Park Master Plan on the agenda, hopefully to be finalized tonight. So those are things we've been following. There's something that happens. I complain about all the emails I get, and a lot of them come from PG&E, especially when they're going through something called a power safety shutoff. When they do this, they send every city manager an email, and I probably have 50 of them. And every time I check, they're related to Northern California. They were just, they just turned the power back on in several counties in Northern California. They had the power off in Santa Barbara County as well. But today is the first time that Chris Mangano actually sent this to me, and it shows that they were turning off the power today in San Benito County, but not in San Juan Bautista formally. So it's important to know this because a lot of times if community members have their power shut off, and it looks like it will be for several days, but they'll come to our city, of course, to seek refuge or even just to charge their phone. So I just want to let the council know that we're in touch and staying, and this is a web page that you use to go to check and see if the power is going to be shut off in your neighborhood. Red flag warnings are definitely a key. When you hear that sound in your county, you know to look in that direction. Grant opportunities. We've been busy working with California Consulting since approving their agreement last month. More than a dozen grants that we're working on. And the focus, of course, was water. So by September 7th, we met the deadline to submit a grant for groundwater, anything to do helping with our wells. So that's a need, of course. We're working on emergency generators and other things for our wells. So that's a grant that can help us out there. Upwards more than $100,000 available, so per application. The SRF is something called the State Revolving Loan Fund, and it's the use of Federal Drinking Act money and Federal Clean Water Act money to provide low-interest loans for our capital improvements. This includes the force main to Hollister and importing water from the West Hills Water Treatment Plant. So we have active applications in the SRF, and California Consulting is stepping up and coordinating all the different pieces. We have to put a package together, a financial plan, a technical plan, and an environmental plan. And those are all due by the end of December. So they've been helpful. And these loans will more than exceed our needs. And if so, then we would have low interest rates and beneficial financing. That would be excellent. They're also stepping up to help with a USDA grant and loan. And that would be our first choice, of course, to have a 20% grant and 80% very low interest loan. Then the CDBG grant is the largest grant we're pursuing in relation to our water, as much as $3.5 million. And that notice of release of funds comes out in December, with applications due in January. We also, as I referenced, working on parks, both of Veruti Park and Franklin Circle Park will benefit from per capita grants provided by Proposition 68. We anticipate about $177,000 from that source, and I signed the documents to complete that grant application today. So that's, and then lastly, we have streets. There's a grant that's specific for reused tires, and they rubberized slurry seal, but you need to put out 2,000 tons of it. So it requires a match, and it turns out that our existing CIP includes enough to match the grant. So we're hoping to be able to double the amount of streets that we'd be able to slurry seal this year. We're looking at that opportunity. That's a brand new one we weren't familiar with before. There's a traffic safety grant that we're looking at, and this addresses things like the conversation we had on traffic safety related to First Street, lighted sidewalks, radar signs, and other tools to increase driver awareness. So this grant is specifically targeted at fixing up streets to make them safer and to give drivers more awareness of the speed limits, so forth. There's a brand new grant that the governor approved, highway cleanup grant of sorts, some Caltrans. These funds will be available in December. So I wanted to give you a review of the grant opportunities that we're looking at, having now entered into an agreement with California Consulting. Simply wouldn't be possible we don't have the bandwidth to go through these dozen grants and then apply for them all effectively. I wanted to moving right ahead, and I'm moving very fast, so if you have questions, let me know. The city engineer is leaving on a administrative leave for about 6 weeks. She'll be back in December. I want to let you know that we've already started working with an interim. We've done this in the past when she had to take the leave, so I think we'll be fine. I just wanted to give you a heads up. On community development, Brian tonight has the parklets already approved. Thank you. And the ADUs, that's the public hearing to follow this conversation. It's also restarting the UGB ad hoc committee. As I wrote the staff reports regarding the population projections for our master plan, the critical nature of the UGB ad hoc committee is forefront. So we're going to get that as promised started as soon as possible. Casa Rosa is under construction. If you haven't noticed, Brian and I were out there on the first day of construction to make sure they understood what the city's policies were and make sure that they were comfortable and fine working out there. So that's great to see. And the gas station, we made really good progress with Caltrans last month. We took something that hadn't moved forward with Caltrans since May, and we got Caltrans to move forward on it last month. I'm hoping with Caltrans moving forward, the gas station project will move forward too. So that's been a struggle, and it's been partly the developers team and partly with Caltrans. So we intervened about 2 weeks ago and gave this project a kick in the pants to move it forward. So those are some of the more high-profile items that we're working on in that department. We had our safety ad hoc subcommittee meeting last night. Sheriff as a guest speaker. That was really good. If Scott and the mayor want to speak to that later, I won't steal your thunder. And by the way, I'm going to be at a conference, believe it or not, in Portland, believe it or not, leaving Saturday, October 2nd and returning Wednesday, October 6th. So I plan to learn a lot about social equity and ARPA funds and all of these good things while I'm up there. So I'll come back and give you a 3-hour city manager report when I get back. So with that, if anyone has any questions, I'm sorry if I went too fast. There's a lot to cover. We're busy. Mayor, thank you.
That was me this time. Unmute myself. Questions, comments, concerns, Councilmember Edge.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for the city manager's report, City Manager Don. I'm just wondering if we can get a copy of this. Usually you give us something and we didn't get anything this week. I don't think I got one. I didn't see it.
No, and I'll fix all the typos. I just finished it at 4 this afternoon, Mary. I apologize.
Okay, yeah. And is there any way that you can get it to us a little bit earlier for our meetings? I know you're busy.
I'll do my best.
It just, makes it easier for me to be able to ask questions, but I don't have any. Just thank you for the report.
Vice Mayor Flores?
No questions, no comments. Thank you for your report.
Thank you. Councilmember Friels?
Just one comment. I'm after seeing all those grant opportunities out there, I'm feeling a lot better hiring California consultants. So thanks, Don.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman?
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you to Don for a great report. I'm sorry to hear that the city engineer is leaving for a very short period of time. I think she's a phenomenal city engineer, and I hope she comes back quickly. Other than that, no questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question on Veruti Park. You said something about October and November.
Right.
Bids have gone out and they're due back to us by October, and then it's under construction in November?
Yes, we have to come to council for the award of the contract, and then they can start construction. So the bids come back October 13th. Correct.
Okay. So we'll do that in our October meeting.
Yeah, that would be, it may be close, but we'll do our best, yeah.
Perfect. Yay. And then do we have a date for the UGB ad hoc committee to start meeting up again?
I thought Brian had mentioned that in his status report that went out around the 10th of the month.
Okay, okay, we can wait until then. I can wait until then. Thank you. And super excited about the rubberized slurry. That sounds pretty darn cool.
It has twice the life of the regular slurry. It's a great product, but it's expensive, so the grant is helpful.
Right, nice. Yeah, very well done. Thank you very much for the presentation. Councilmember Edge, did you have something else?
I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear Don when he answered your question, but I can hear him now. And you asked a question when the UGB is going to be getting together, but I didn't hear what his answer was.
Coming to a theater near you soon. Brian will discuss it in his presentation. Do we have any public comment?
I don't see any hands raised.
Thank you very much. Reports from City Council representatives to regional organizations and committees. Councilmember Edge, welcome back. Have you had a chance to go to any committee meetings?
I did. I had a chance to go to the COG meeting, and as I think it was Dawn that said that Caltrans is going to, they have a big cleanup going on. Hopefully we'll be able to see our highways nice and clean. And then we had an update on our 156. PG&E is doing all their changes. And then I went to the Seniors Council meeting, and they were working on a senior plan, getting seniors, help for seniors. There's more and more seniors that are living now, and anyway, they're working on a master plan with the state, and we're going to be working on it also. That's all I have.
Nice, thank you very much. Vice Mayor Flores?
I attended a couple of meetings this month, the homeless service providers meeting, and then tomorrow at 1:30 I have a leadership council meeting. And that's about it.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Friels?
Nothing outside of town. We just had our public safety meeting last night. As Don said, the sheriff spoke, gave us some great news, and I'm leaving that one to you to tell everybody with Mayor Jordan.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman?
Yes, thank you. I've attended 2 meetings, one last week, the Integrated Waste Management meeting. We got to welcome a new member. That would be Councilperson Rick Perez of the City of Hollister. Then in the meeting itself, the Integrated Waste Management Division of the county has hired a new consultant to help them work through the many problems with both the landfill and recology. And so that will be up in the next couple of months, and it'll be busy. But until then, also several weeks ago, we had an AMBAG meeting. It was dominated by RENA numbers. All I can say is we're getting our numbers from COG, which will be probably in a couple of months. But the people who have already received their numbers, they're approximately 3 times what they were during the previous cycle. So our number for the previous cycle was, I believe, 41. So if we just take that round number of 3 and multiply, that would be 123 additional units that we would need to plan for. And that's all I have for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. That's quite interesting. can't wait to hear more on that. Public Safety Ad Hoc Committee, we met, for those of you who don't know, Councilmember Friels is on it. Historic Resources Board Chair, Commissioner Dave Medeiros is on it. Planning Commissioner Chair, Commissioner Yolanda Delgado is on it. Our community member at large and Vice Chair is Rachel Ponce. City Manager Don Reynolds and myself make up that committee. We did get to a mission statement yesterday that is pretty all-encompassing. And Sheriff Taylor and Captain Keeline came on, and he was very well received. He is amenable to the needs and the wants of the city of San Juan Bautista. He heard what we had to say. He has been listening all along and spoke up yesterday at the meeting. He actually proposed a dedicated deputy 4 days a week for 10 hours a day with a little bit of flexibility built in. And on the days and nights that they are not here, we still can get a hold of them like we do, calling 911 or our private security firm, Level 1 Private Security, still can get in touch with them. Sheriff Taylor has given them a secret hotline to get in touch with them. He spoke about working relationships that will be enhanced in his department. He spoke about changing the culture of his department and his staff. He spoke about holding his deputies accountable. And the biggest thing he spoke about was policing with dignity and respect and re-engaging with our community. So with that, we're going to continue working with all of our safety groups. We'll be meeting with the Hollister Fire Department. We'll be meeting with Level 1 Private Security and going through their contracts as well. Yesterday, we went through and spoke about the Sheriff's Department contracts and how old it was and the little nuances that we needed to beef it up a little bit to bring it up to date. It was a really good conversation, and I think that all of the safety committee members would agree with that. That is the only other meeting, that's the only meeting I attended this month. Questions, comments, and concerns? Do we have any public comment?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Public hearing items. 5A, introduction of an ordinance amending section 11-29-010 to delete reference to second units, repealing section 11-04-505, and adding a new section 11-04-050 to the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code to conform with the state regulations relating to accessory dwelling units, which is exempt from CEQA. Staff report, not by Don Reynolds, but by Brian Pouch. Welcome, Brian. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Very good. Welcome.
Yes, so I do have
Brian, I think you're breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure if that's going on with everybody else, but with me for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't hear me.
Is that any
Sorry,
better? Here. You hear me okay?
Yep, coming in loud and clear now.
Okay, all right. All right, so I do have an email from Tara Vaughn after the PowerPoint.
You're so breaking up.
Oh, I am. Okay. Let me do something different here. No. Is it any better?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So I think what I'll do is get straight to the PowerPoint, and then I'll go over comments received after that. So let's see. As you all know, we've been talking about this accessory dwelling unit ordinance for quite some time. It's had several study sessions with the Planning Commission. We've had a community meeting about these, and there is a lot of interest in the opportunity created by the state law to develop these units with virtually no restrictions. Accessory dwelling units are defined similarly to the current second residential unit ordinance that we do have already. I like our current ordinance. It's so much simpler and easier to deal with. This is both complex and controversial because of the extent of state law intrusion into local control over our land use decisions. So we're trying to do as much as we can, and a lot of what we have proposed in the ordinance right now with respect to historic resources might not make it through HCD, but we're compelled to try because of the nature of the historic resources that we do have. So our current and proposed ordinances are supported by our general plan policy 4.3. That's going to continue to be the case. We have proposed this ordinance to comply with changes in state laws. And if the city's regulations don't comply, they're superseded by state law. And as I said before, this law is written so that there are a lot of shalls and not very many shoulds. So we can apply minimum and maximum standards that are different from state law, that are less burdensome or provide greater flexibility. And in some cases in the ordinance, we've done that. And we can establish our own objective design standards for ADUs. We haven't done that because we have a very simple, straightforward approach that relies on site plan design review for units that are over 16 feet in height. And so our approach, that is an option the City Council has to have us develop some design standards that would apply to all ADUs. What's that? Yes, I am. Oh. Let's see here. How do I get out of here? Let's see. Ah, okay. All right. Yep.
And then go back.
Here's my share screen. Oh, yeah. Here we are. Share screen.
Oh, I labeled you.
John has to help me share my screen. I think it's because it's been disabled, so he's going to go enable it. Not there yet.
So there are two Brian Fauches, and I don't know why. I don't know why. And I can only open one. So, whatever. Someday we'll just have a meeting. Go ahead, Brian. I don't know what to do.
All right, I
made
can
you host.
continue.
I made you host, Brian. I don't know why you're on this twice. I don't know why your name is signed in twice.
I think at one point, so I should go to the one where I'm host.
Yes.
I think we need some training on this thing.
How do I do that?
I don't know why you have two.
How do I go to the one where I'm host?
When I made you host, I'm no longer host, so. You can't go to the one. Oh, great. Now I'm locked out. Okay.
Brian, we're doing good with you where you're at.
Yeah, okay.
If you just carry on.
Yeah, I'm just going to carry on here, maybe do it without the PowerPoint, and just speak to the PowerPoint. I think it's going to be understandable regardless. And so with respect to legislative changes, and Don, if that status changes and I can share the screen, we should do that when we get to sewer and water capacity slides. That might be helpful. I don't know how we can do that.
I surrendered my host power to you and you can't get in there now.
Okay. Oh, what's happening?
That's okay. Can you do it without PowerPoint?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no question. Okay, so so we can, as I said, was saying, the City Council can establish design standards. Some of the comments that we receive from people suggest that when you add ADUs on top of accessory buildings, and those units exceed 16 feet in height, and they're located near property boundaries or within 4 feet, or they're located as accessory buildings, often can be located very close, within 5 feet. Some people believe that we need to have design standards to deal with those issues. Already, our zoning ordinance does have some standards for accessory in required yards with respect to extensions of eaves and canopies, architectural features, bay windows, and so forth. And then also extension of stairs and so forth into required yards, but they don't really deal with the kind of issues that might be present if you had a living space looking directly over someone's fence. So that might be a reason the City Council might like to establish design standards. Not in the scope of work for Harrison Associates, but we can develop them administratively and put them in the ordinance if you like. The reason that we want to create a path, what our ordinance does is it intends to maintain the character of historic districts and properties, and it creates a path to legalize illegally created or unlawfully created second dwellings. We do have some here in town, and our concern is that these units might be subject to a building code requirements, regardless of how they were built or where they're located. It's a better situation than to have them continue unlawfully with people living in them when they may not be safe units. So we create a path to legalize those second units, an amnesty program, if you will, for those units. Our ordinance basically recognizes that there's a variety of styles in the historic that are recognized in the historic San Juan Bautista plan, And a basic ministerial standard is to require consistency in design relative to colors, materials, and finishes for all other ADUs as well. So we'd like to maintain as much control as we can in those situations. ADUs must be considered and approved ministerially within any zoning district that allows for residential development. And the city can apply development and design standards that are objective. However, the current scope of work, as I said, does not include the preparation of these standards. So that would be an extension of what we're doing. A portion of the government code establishes what's called state exemption ADUs. They're contained within a single family residence, detached ADU with 4-foot setbacks, 800 square feet or a height of 16 feet or less, can be built without having to go through any kind of design review. And then there can be conversion of existing space within a multifamily building. And 2 detached ADUs with 4-foot setbacks and a height of 16 feet can be built on a multifamily lot. With respect to zoning standards, there is no minimum lot size. The maximum unit size must be at least 850 square feet if there's an ADU with 1 bedroom, 1,000 square feet if an ADU has more than 1 bedroom. If we didn't have an ordinance, we would have to set our maximum at 1,200 square feet. There are lot coverage limitations. This was a subject of concern during the Plan Commission meeting. Up to 40% of rear yards and at least 850 square feet in size, and in R1 districts. And so that's a concern that if we said something like whichever is greater, or we didn't say whichever is greater in the ordinance, we might be limiting the size of ADUs to less than 850 square feet, which we are not allowed to do. The maximum height requirement is 16 feet, so we can't go lower than that. We can't limit the number of bedrooms in an ADU, and we cannot require that the property be used. We can require that the property not be used for short-term rentals, which we have done. The state law allows us to limit owner occupancies after 5 years. And that didn't make very much sense to me to not have an owner occupancy requirement for 5 years and then have one kick in after 5 years. So this ordinance eliminates the owner occupancy requirement for ADUs, and that's more permissive than the state law. There are many references now in this ordinance, unlike what was presented initially during our public workshops. There are many references to historic districts and properties, referenced as automatic historic resources in our code sections here, 11, 40, 50, 120, 150, 116, 170. We have, in addition to those references, provided greater design flexibility on sites with existing multifamily units and allowed two attached ADUs to be built where the state law would not allow that. So that's more flexibility. Again, we've referenced unlawfully created ADUs in section 150H. We have developed an objective design standards that require San Juan Bautista design guidelines and the use of Secretary of Interior standards in the context of historic resources. In other areas, we've penciled in a requirement that ADUs have to match and be consistent with the primary unit. This is a standard that's in the current ordinance. And we thought that it was a great device to ensure that there's compatibility between the new unit, the new AD unit, and the existing units. Now there is some discussion about wastewater capacities, and I know Don has this material memorized probably, and so if perhaps we can have a little discussion about any concern regarding sewer and water capacity. I'd like to just mention that in addition to the email that you received from Caravonc that Trish sent out, Caravonc felt that the definition of historic resources should include properties. And if you look at the definition of historic resources in the ordinance, it refers to sections 110605, 060, and 090A. And those sections are inclusive of almost every kind of historic resource that the city has in addition to residential buildings. And so we don't need to change that definition to include reference to properties as Ms. Vonk is suggesting. In addition, she's suggesting that the ordinance give the Planning Commission the opportunity to impose design standards on all ADUs. And currently, 080 in this ordinance, section 080, only provides design standards for detached accessory dwelling units, not for those units that are put on top of accessory buildings like garages. And again, we don't have these, but they could be developed. Not that it's a problem, but they'll need to be objective and they'll need to be ministerial in nature. So right now we haven't applied any objective design standards to ADUs that are converted, or that is, if you've got a garage and you're converting it to an ADU, we don't have design standards for that because that's an existing structure, and we felt it was too big of a burden for people to comply with design standards when the state law enables them to just convert those units into living units. So we're going to just simply accept the design of those structures the way they are in this ordinance. So that's the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And maybe Don would like to go over the subject of sewer and water capacity if you can.
So Brian, are you able to make me co-host in the participant list if you have my name?
Let's see here, participants. Let's see. Okay. Oh, here's more. Yes, just a minute. I'm going to make you host. Make you host or co-host?
Thank you. Host is fine.
Co-host. Okay.
No, host. Okay.
Got it.
Thank you. And then you should be able to share your screen, Brian. You're the host now. Try sharing your screen again, please.
All right. Yes, let's get that PowerPoint back up. And then there's the, can everyone see that?
No.
No.
No? Oh. Let's see. There we are. There. Can you see that now?
Almost. It's a black screen,
Uh,
but it says you started sharing it.
no.
There we go.
Thank you, Brian. So we had some questions about whether or not we have water and sewer capacity to add ADUs, because the state laws are adding them without consideration for jurisdiction's capacity to provide this vital infrastructure. So I just spelled out for Brian and for the Planning Commission that our permit allows us to treat 270,000 gallons per day, and we're currently treating 160,000 gallons per day. A problem with water we're treating is the effluent that comes out is still too salty. And as we know, that's partly related to the fact that our source water is too salty. So that's why we have this big extravagant program to address this. But in terms of volume, we have plenty of volume capacity. So there's two ways to look at that, volume versus quality. So we're not going to be any more in violation or any less in violation if we add ADUs. And we estimate each resident to use between 15 to 20 gallons per day. So at 3.8 persons per home, we could add about 1,500 new homes. So there's room there for the capacity to grow. And that's all based on our wastewater master plan at a 1.9% growth rate, which equals approximately 287 new homes. So and then the next slide is addressing water, right, Brian? Oh, maybe
Got wastewater. A little bit more about what water.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Right. So water consumption is about 123 gallons per day per capita. I've seen as low as 115 gallons per capita. Our rated supply is approximately 160,000 gallons per day. And then they have a firm supply. This is the way the drinking division of the water board looks at this. The worst case scenario, if we had just one well, we'd be able to serve about 250,000 gallons per day. So our rated supply is up to about 8,000 people per day. Anyway, to cut to the chase, we have plenty of water source available when all of our wells are up and running, which is 90% of the time. Right now it's just well 1 and well 5, but we have plenty of water and we have plenty of wastewater capacity to treat the water. So we just wanted to address those questions in case they came up tonight. Thank you, Brian, for sharing that slide. If there's anything else on here you want to review with us, since you got it up. Yay.
I think that's it. Yes, I think that's it. And there's a couple more slides on the water, wastewater and water system, but those are build up capacity improvements. So this gives you an idea.
The whole point of having the master plans, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I can go back to any individual slide if you like. These are the slides that were presented before, and so I can go back to these if you like and answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Brian. Questions, comments, and concerns from the council. Councilmember Edge.
Yeah, I just have one, and I don't know, might not affect this, but Brian, I was looking at the municipal code, the codes that we have online, and I don't know if I saw it in one of the sections or one of the ones that are here. I've been looking for it, and I can't find it. It mentioned a modular home or a prefab home. And it not having to have a foundation. Was I dreaming it, or I can't find it?
I don't recall that section in the municipal code.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm just asking because I know I read it somewhere, but I don't know, I can't remember. And it talked about a prefab home being put on the property and not having to have a foundation, and that kind of bothered me. But that was all. Maybe you can look into that another time, not now.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Flores?
No comments.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Friels?
Just a couple things. So ones that jumped out is so no mitigation fees. So we can't charge like fire impact fees or anything like that for these dwellings. Is that correct?
No, you can. There's a size limit. If an ADU is less than 750 square feet, you cannot. But if they're larger, you can charge a proportionate fee. So you would calibrate the fee according to the size of the unit compared to the size of the primary unit. So it's a proportionate in relation to the square footage of the primary unit. So there can be fees. It's just that you can't require a utility connection, separate utility connection for the accessory units. The owner can do it if they want, but you can't require it. But you can charge a capacity fee if they're if they're 750 square feet or more.
And how much on something like that, where if they're running power to an accessory unit from their house, are they, how do I put this, exempt from the electrical codes, or can they just, or do they have to follow something?
They have to follow, they have to follow building codes when they build these units. And I wish I had an answer to Mary's question. It's not in the definition that these units have to be on a permanent foundation. So.
Okay, I've got it. If I could just bear with me real quick. This is a lot more gobbledygook than what we've seen in the past with these units.
Yes, it is.
I guess one of the concerns I had too was the what they call a junior, what's be calling a junior accessory dwelling unit.
Yes. Yeah, those are the units that are built inside in an existing unit. And junior accessory dwelling, junior ADUs can only be built in R1 districts. So, so you can.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a provision in the law and in the ordinance that allows the conversion of spaces within multifamily dwellings that are not currently habitable. So if you want to make these spaces efficiency units, 500 square feet or so, then you can do that. You can find the room. But with respect to junior accessory dwelling units, they cannot be located in multifamily districts, R2 or R3 districts.
So we're just saying in R1, they can put a 500 square foot little apartment inside the house. So it's no longer an R1, now it's an R2.
Well, actually the law says that you can't count accessory dwelling units as density in addition of density. So it would still be an R1 district.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess in Sacramento's definitions, but the rest of the world. Okay.
Right.
You know, I just, this stuff just infuriates me because it's completely taking San Juan out of any type of, we're not even able to run our own town. SB 9 and all these bills down here, every one of these AB bills and the Senate bill is going to change this little town forever. And it just infuriates me because if we don't go along with the program, Dawn, if we don't go along with this program, what are they going to do? Like what they threatened before, not give us our tax money?
No, actually, what happens here is if we don't enact the ordinance, state law does apply. And if we don't implement state law, then we are subject to attorney general sanctions. Something.
Attorney general sanctions.
Yeah.
Yes.
What the heck does that mean?
Well, let me find the code reference real quick.
I can, you know, there's not much I can do about this tonight. I'm sorry, Brian. I don't want to tie up any more time on this, but this just makes me sick. I don't have any more. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for the great report. Like Scott, I also have a lot of trepidations and fears. I'm going to ask, can school districts still collect impact fees for ADUs? Especially since kids can live in them and go to school and impact the size of that school?
Yes, they can collect impact fees.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. It's good to know. Do we also get to collect impact fees for water, sewer, streets, and parking?
Yes, you can collect impact fees, but they have to be proportionate.
I think there's some issues though about the hookup fees, Brian, right? Like you can't collect hookup fees on some of these ADUs.
Yeah, the connection fee, connection may be subject to a connection fee or a capacity charge that's proportionate to the burden of the proposed accessory dwelling unit based on its square footage, or the number of its drainage fixture unit value. So there is a way to collect connection fees in the law.
I'm sorry, John, a follow-up to that. Is it only if it's greater than 750 square feet? Thank you.
A connection fee is different than an impact fee. If it's less than 750 square feet, you can't collect an impact fee. But the connection fee, let's see here. If it's for an accessory dwelling unit that is not, this is a little bit difficult to explain, that is not a state mandated or exempt unit, a local agency or water special district or water corporation may require a new or separate utility connection directly between the unit and utility. Connection may be subject to a connection fee or charge proportionate as I described. So that's a little different. That's not necessarily an impact fee.
So that information is pretty clear in this handbook that was given to us.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, getting back to my questions, Brian, I have one more question, and that is, do the impact fees? I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. I apologize. Thank you for the great report, Brian.
We can come back to you, John. if you think of it. Brian, I have a couple of questions, please.
Yeah.
You said that a garage conversion we have to accept as is, and earlier you stated that we're penciling in matching the primary unit. Would not a conversion be included in that? So if they give us a plan to paint the front purple, we can say absolutely not, you have to match the primary unit. And is that penned in or penciled in? On page 3, before the ordinance.
Yeah, except for the way the ordinance is written, you can apply those standards except for converted accessory buildings. So the intention of the ordinance is to leave the design of converted structures basically alone. And this is in section 1104-160 of the ordinance, of the proposed ordinance. Now, you can change that, of course, if you like, and make colors, materials, and finishes of all accessory dwelling units consistent with the primary building.
I don't know why we would not say that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be, there's a couple of places where that's referenced. That would be section 1104-150G and also 1104-160. So we would change those sections to require converted units to be compatible or consistent in colors. And I don't know about materials, but colors and finishes.
Why not materials?
Well, materials, you know, you might have a garage or another accessory structure that has a different set of materials. You'd be requiring that accessory structure to strip all the exterior materials off and replace them with something that matches. And if you want to do that, that's a burden. But
to whom?
It can be done. Yeah.
A burden to whom?
To the person that wants to establish the second unit.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
if they want to accessory dwelling unit or a junior ADU, they would have to follow whatever requirements the city and the planning commission and the HRB put upon them.
Correct.
I don't know. I don't know why. If it doesn't matter if the city is burdened, why would it matter? I don't know. I don't think that that's an issue. That it would be for the person who wants one. I think consistency is what. Correct me if I'm wrong, fellow council members, on this one. But I would say that everything should look the same or be consistent. If we're putting an attachment onto an existing building, it would be.
I agree.
So Brian, wasn't this where you're going to come back with design standards though? I mean, was that,
well,
that's where a lot of cities are putting that in their design standards. It's a separate document.
Yeah. Well, we could do this a couple of ways. We could change that language to require consistency in colors, materials, and finishes, just like the existing second residential unit ordinance does. And then we could also, at some point, come back with design guidelines, not outside the ordinance itself. You know, that's something that you know, I think we could do by operation of the ordinance. And because we are referring to design guidelines, the city has a set of design guidelines that are required for accessory dwelling units. And so in the historic districts, at least, we can just extend that use of those guidelines and append them or amend them to make sure that they cover accessory dwelling units.
Yeah, I would add that language to everywhere that we possibly can.
Yeah, because we do have design guidelines for housing in town.
Yes.
So it would be pretty sad if we had a Victorian with a carriage house that was converted into an accessory dwelling unit, and all of a sudden this carriage house looks like a concrete block house. I mean, it's just not, I mean, this isn't Key West. I mean, we just.
Absolutely. And that was my concern. Why would we do it for something and not for everything?
Mm-hmm.
So if we put that language throughout.
Yeah, I could do that.
Definitely.
And this will come back for second reading where you'll be able to see that, those changes.
So Brian, I think if you're making those substantial changes, you're probably going to have to bring it back for a first reading again.
Okay.
And also, you know, consider putting them in the design guidelines, because a lot of cities do it that way so that the HCD isn't picking through your design guidelines then. So a simpler ordinance and then stronger design guidelines outside of the ordinance.
And so Deb, you're recommending or suggesting that we would take reference to colors, materials, and finishes and put them in guidelines rather than in the ordinance.
Yes.
Or just refer to a set of design guidelines to achieve a certain objective.
Well, I think the benefit is that, you know, HCD is going to pick through this now, and you don't want HCD to pick through your guidelines. So I think it'd be a benefit.
Yeah, the other thing that HCD is going to focus on, of course, is the reference to our attempt to have our existing design guidelines in the Secretary of the Interior guidelines for historic resources serve as our objective design standards, and that's you know, that's in several places in the ordinance, and that HCD will focus on those sections. And this has been an area that's been controversial since the ordinance was first proposed and during our community meetings and workshops with the Planning Commission. And we intentionally created sections that would respond to those comments in the ordinance itself. And if there's a feeling that we've gone too far in the ordinance, then we can take those and put them in guidelines as well. If that will get us a better performance through HCD, and it probably will. Our consultants were very concerned that we had reference to historic resources in the ordinance, you know, because that did not seem to be consistent with the mandatory approvals that state law requires.
Yeah, and if I can just add in here, I mean, I've talked to other city attorneys about this, and I think it's very likely that the HCD is going to kick this ordinance back for those reasons. They're, you know, they're not like another state agency. The state legislature gave them full power to interpret some ADU rules that are vague in some places, and I think the city has pointed out to something that's vague, but that's not the way HCD is going to interpret it. So when it goes to them, I think it's pretty likely it's going to get kicked back, and you're going to have to look at this for a second round.
Yeah, we anticipated that as well. But we felt compelled, excuse me, we felt compelled to try, of course. Those are good comments, I think.
Thank you for that. On page 4, you talk about it's bullet points, accessory dwelling units, single family zoning, R1, bullet point
Page
5, page 4, bullet point 5, provides expedited review of an 800 square foot or smaller unit. Can you define expedited?
Is that in the staff report you're referencing?
I'm reading item 5A of our packet.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's the staff report. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yes, that is refers to accessory dwelling units subject to mandatory approval. And state law says that when somebody submits an application for an accessory dwelling unit that's 800 square feet in size or smaller, has a height of no more than 16 feet, or has minimum 4 foot wide and rear yard side and rear yard setbacks. And of course, I've added reference to historic districts not participating in that mandatory approval. But state law says that if the unit meets those criteria, then they just get a pass. They go directly to building permit. And there's no discretion.
And they still have to follow building and planning codes.
As long as they meet these criteria with respect to size, setbacks, and height, then they get a pass. They can convert a garage, for example, without replacing the parking space, if that is a required space, and they can do basically whatever they want if they meet those criteria. And the same thing is true for a junior accessory dwelling unit that's 500 square feet or smaller. The law says that an application to create an ADU or junior ADU shall be deemed approved if we haven't acted on it within 60 days. So we really are focusing on, the minimum, necessary to get a livable unit in there, and mandating that those be approved automatically.
Okay, 2 more things, please. The ordinance itself. Whereas 1, whereas 2, whereas 3, whereas 4, whereas 5, accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units provide housing for family members, students, the elderly, in-home health care providers, the disabled, and others at below market price within existing neighborhoods. Who sets these prices, and how are they regulated, and how do we regulate them?
Yeah, I don't know that we do. These are, I'm trying to see if these are findings that the state legislature made when they enacted the law. And oftentimes there's a statement of intent in the law. And that is the case in state law. In a prior section of the state law that deals with second units, they refer to these factors as their intent in creating the 80 unit, the actual 80 unit provisions.
We saw in La Casa Rosa where a studio apartment is going for $1,750. I'm not sure that's, I don't know what market value is, so I don't know what below market value prices are. I think we're a little elevated at this moment. But
Yeah.
they're, if they are at or below market prices within existing neighborhoods, there has to be a way to say, I'm sorry, you can't charge $2,000 for an 800 square foot unit.
Yeah, so you're talking about, you're talking about rent, so some rent control provisions.
Uh-huh.
And there is no requirement in the law that these units be reserved for low and very low income or low and moderate income households. I don't have that information regarding what those income limits are in front of me, but the law doesn't speak to that.
But we have that in our ordinance.
It's a whereas, consistent with what the intent of the state legislature was in mandating these provisions. I don't know that there's any limitation on establishing rent control for these units. I don't see that anywhere.
Well, it's not necessarily rent control. I mean, at some point you have to increase for cost of living, but it stipulates at or below market prices within existing neighborhoods. So there has to be a limit somewhere, and somebody has to regulate that. I'm hoping that we have that capability because it's in here, and that there is oversight for this. Scott, I feel your frustration, man. This is driving me crazy.
That's okay. We can research that when we bring the ordinance back.
Okay.
And I think that's a good question.
Thank you. The whereas the next one, allowing accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units in conjunction with existing or proposed residential development, provides additional rental housing stock, some of which will satisfy the city's 6-cycle RHNA numbers.
Correct.
How do we do we have a count of how many we have and how many we need to meet this 6th cycle? Say that fast, 5 times after 8 o'clock.
No, we don't. We don't have an accounting. We do know how many are in the new subdivision. I think I have that information in the file. But we we would have to do an accounting. One of the reasons that the ordinance includes reference to addresses, for example, is so that we can better count them. The fact that we can't require a separate utility connection is a bit of an obstacle. If we could require a separate utility connection, then we'd know more. So the law has some real limits on our ability to count them. We would, in a city the size of San Juan Bautista, we could almost do a street by street survey and try to get a handle on it that way.
Well, that would be great, because if we satisfy it, why would we add more? I understand that we have to have some, perhaps, but do we?
Well, the law reads that you have to allow them, and it doesn't say you have to allow them up to a certain level. It just says basically where the opportunity exists and there's a willing property owner that wants these units, that they're allowed, subject to the standards in the law.
So how do we know that some will satisfy the 6th cycle? How do we know that?
Oh, well.
How do we meet those needs?
Well, what we can do is we don't know what the 6th cycle will result in. The numbers are just coming out. But I can tell you that the 5th cycle numbers were very low, and it wouldn't take much. But
But that doesn't matter
If
anyway,
it-
because we have to allow them all.
Yeah, you do, but the legislature said, well, you know, if we're going to make you do this, then we'll at least allow you to count them toward your regional housing need number. So it's throwing us a bone, if you will.
I think, Mayor, it's an assumption. It's an assumption that the state is making. In other cases, we've used affordable housing agreements. Casa Rosa, we have an affordable housing agreement that requires them to keep the units affordable. Copperleaf, we also have covenants that keep them affordable, so they rent them outside the family. So, but that's the formal way of doing it, and that's a super cumbersome. If you had 25 different owners and 25 different ADUs, it'd be impossible to administer that.
The problem, I think, that what Don is talking about is that what we do and what we say in this ordinance has to be enforceable.
Exactly
So-
my point. Thank you.
And that's difficult with respect to low and moderate income units. We need to. That's why I said rent control or for sale restrictions would be necessary, and those would be deed restrictions.
And Councilmember Ed, I have something to say.
Okay. Brian, you just said you can't require separate utility connections.
Right.
And I think that went to a point that either Scott or John made earlier.
Yeah, they can voluntarily do it. And you know, we can charge fees, but can't require a separate connection.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. Councilmember Edge?
Yeah, you know, going back to the very low and low income and who sets those, it's the Department of Housing that sets the price, and we can challenge it, but it's a big, long process. And the only reason I know is because this came up. I brought this up at the COG meeting. And so I just wanted to share that with you, that we could try, we could challenge it. But, you know, I don't know how much time we have. I think it's already been done. And we need to, there's a window where you have time to challenge it. We have all our ducks in a row and everything.
Yeah, those numbers are in our housing element, and you can bring that information back as well.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah, so then my question is, why do we have it in the ordinance then? Why do we have that whereas at below market prices within existing neighborhoods? If we can't do anything about it and it's cost prohibitive and a strain on our resources, why do we require it? It's a question and something to think about. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, or concerns from the council before I open it up to the public? Thank you. I now open the public hearing. Trish, do we have any public comments on this? Deputy City
Yes,
Clerk?
Cara Bonk has been waiting. I'll allow her to speak now.
Thank you very much.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Welcome, Cara.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I just want you to know that I've been really involved with this ordinance from the very outset because it's gone through quite a few permutations. And I urge you to support the Planning Commission's recommendation that ADUs in historic districts and on historic properties, that they get some kind of ministerial approval. And that's how the ordinance before you has been written. Under the statute, if an ADU is 800 feet or smaller within 4 feet of the property line, or at least 4 feet, and not higher than 16 feet, there is no discretion. I mean, they can walk up to the counter, but they still have to comply with the building code, and it has to be ministerially approved. And so the way it's referenced, ministerially, you've mentioned consistent finishes, materials, that is ministerial. That does not require discretion. And so it also references the Secretary of the Interior standards, and that is also ministerial. So I urge you to keep that in there and, let the HDC do what they need to do. In the statute, also, there's some reference to properties that are in the California Register of Historic Resources. Those include National Register properties, and we have a number of them in town. So I'm very concerned. We have a historic town, we all know that, and we need to do whatever we can to maintain, that ambiance. And then in addition to that, I do have a question. ADUs can be built on top of garages. They can be built on top where we talked about converted ADUs. I assume somebody can put a second story, if they convert a rec room or something, I assume they can put a second story to make it into an ADU. So if there is an ADU on top of something that's already existing, does that make it higher than 16 feet and therefore reviewable by the Planning Commission? Because I'm not sure the ordinance, it's all very complicated, but I want to make sure that if something is higher than 16 feet because something's been built on top of something, that there can be some kind of discretionary, like Planning Commission review of the design. That was my question. And then hopefully you will keep the references to the historic district and historic resources in the ordinance. Thank you.
So Cara, I think it depends on whether it's a junior ADU or ADU. Because I think a junior ADU can be anywhere, including on a second story, but the ADU is a standalone, so then it can't be higher than 16 feet. I mean, that's my cursory understanding. I don't know if Brian agrees on that.
I think what Tara is talking about is there's a particular section in the ordinance that requires Planning Commission review of site plan and design review for ADUs that are detached, that are over 16 feet in height. And so presumably if you've got an ADU that, well, and then there's another section immediately following that says that attached ADUs or converted units over 16 feet in height, that same standard or that same requirement is not there. So the zoning ordinance, I mean the ordinance doesn't treat attached and detached ADUs the same way. It only requires Planning Commission review for those that are it only requires Planning Commission review for those that are
detached.
I'm sorry,
by the way,
attached or detached? I didn't quite hear that.
It only requires design approval for ADUs that are detached. That's the way the ordinance currently reads.
Well, I'm confused. I'm hoping that anything that goes up, because it will impact neighbors, it'll be, and I know other cities have adopted, these no exterior stairs,
So the zoning laws would still apply if it's inside the actual house and they try to go up, they can't go up.
Even if it's a converted ADU or
Right,
whatever,
the zoning laws
converted
still
one?
apply. It's going to be the junior ADU stuff, and they have to comply with the the package of the house itself has to still comply with the zoning for that district.
Well, that's not how I read it, but all right. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to take more of your time right now. And maybe since this has to come back anyway, maybe we can look at it a little bit further.
Yes, I think that would be appropriate. And that's something that can be flagged because it's definitely an inconsistency where you're requiring a detached unit to be subject to site plan and design review if it's over 16 feet, but then the potential for having an ADU on top of the garage, which clearly exceeds 16 feet, isn't. So, the ordinance, the way it's written, is a little inconsistent in that respect. So I think it might deserve a second look. And the other thing, Mary, you had a question about permanent foundations, and the ordinance does require a permanent foundation and does say that a recreational vehicle, commercial coach, trailer, motorhome, camper, or boat, I don't know if that would happen, but I guess it could, can't be used as an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, good. Perfect. Thank you, Brian.
I just want to add, I do know of a boat that has been converted into an ADU. It's in Half Moon Bay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Farah. Any other public comment?
Yes, we have Vanda Guibert.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Vanda, welcome.
Thank you all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to offer my perspective as someone who owns an ADU unit. We bought our 2003 Creek Bridge home. We're one of 4 homeowners that have an ADU. Ours is above the garage with an exterior staircase. When we bought, we had to agree that if we were to rent, we would rent to, I think probably a Section 8 individual from a list that the city had. We had to sign that agreement. We didn't rent, so it was not an issue for us. We never pursued it. The other thing is that when you talk about utilities, I'm not sure you mean sewer hookup, because our back unit is a separate hookup. We pay 2 sewer hookups each month. So I just wanted to add, our experience with our current ADU. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, was somebody else speaking there?
That was me.
Okay, sorry, Brian.
And I had that same question about utilities, and I looked for a definition of utilities, and I didn't find it. And I was hoping that the booklet answered that question. But,
well, since ours was a newly constructed home in 2003, they were able, to do the separate hookup, and that's how it's been since then.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment?
We do.
Jackie Morris Lopez.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jackie, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan and Councilman, and good evening, everyone else. San Juan County resident, San Juan Bautista resident, San Diego County resident, many years. So I'm speaking as a resident tonight, so listening to the meeting and all of the questions by the councilman and the previous residents, it's very apparent to me that there's a lot of questions. I agree with Councilman Friels. I hear his frustration. I too am frustrated with this ordinance. It's obvious that there's still a lot of need to work through some of these questions that were brought up. I think I heard Assistant City Manager Brian mention at one point that existing ADUs or granny flats or junior ADUs that we call now that are existing, that they do not need to be fit under the current or this current ADU ordinance. And I don't understand that. If we're going to make people go through the process of this current ordinance or state SB law, I think we need to kind of go back and see, and I think Councilman Friels would agree, to make sure that these structures that have been there for maybe 15, 20, 10 years are up to fire codes. My concern is that, this is not a one size fits all aspect. I mean, we are not a huge city. We have limited dirt in our land. I mean, to me, it sounds like we're going to have to start going vertical. And I agree with Cara about the ordinance and the 16 feet regulation. You start building these ADUs, which would be attached, so they're considered junior ADUs on top of people's garages. What if the garage is like, close to the street? Then you've got these obstructive junior ADUs. You've got the more than 16 feet. There's just so much to consider here. And it's very frustrating that we are at this juncture where this law has been spinning around for over a year and a half by our governor. And if I understand, this whole premise of the ordinance and the ADUs with less restrictive regulations, except for building codes, was to address the lack of affordable housing. So it's very contradictory what we're saying and what we're hearing and what we are reading on this whereas section about at below market value. There's just way too many uncertainties. I think this thing needs to go back. I appreciate all the hard work that Brian has put into this, but just hearing the conversations, there's even conflicting or differing views from our city attorney. There's uncertainty. This thing is not ready to go, folks. I'm sorry. Please spend more time on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further public comment?
No, there are no other hands raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm now closing public hearing. Thank you all.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're not the public. You can speak anytime you want.
Okay. I just wanted to say to Dawn and Brian and Deb, I'm so sorry that you guys have to be the bearer of this bad news. I understand you're working super hard to try to figure out this ridiculous gobbledygook of the alphabet soup. I bet we could ask 60% of our legislature and none of them would even be able to explain any of this. I'm back to the frustration part, but my frustration is not towards the three of you or anybody on our planning commission or anybody in town. It's a group of people that are 150 miles away that probably couldn't find San Juan on a map if they had a gun to their head. So I just want to say, Brian, thanks for falling on that sword. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I just have one more. I have one more
Thanks for that,
question.
Scott. Go ahead.
Do we have, Brian, is there a deadline to come up with this? Because, there's a lot that we have to cover. And I'm just, wondering if we have a deadline.
There really isn't a deadline. The problem is that if we don't have local standards, objective standards to address our local context, then this law is in effect, and if we get an application for development that meets these requirements, then we're obligated to process it.
Ah, okay.
Yes, therein lies the rub.
Yeah, that kind of speaks to Jackie's point, like what you have now is worse than this ordinance because you just have the basic state law.
Absolutely.
And our actual law that we have in the books doesn't apply. It's struck down. So waiting really isn't the answer. It's putting something in place, getting it to the HDD, have it struck down, but at least you have something better than what the state law currently is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Right now,
I'm pretty confident that we can, as I go back and listen to the conversation, I'm pretty confident we can bring back an ordinance, and at least, if not with provisions that address all of these concerns, that we have answers to your questions. You know, it's a very complicated ordinance to interpret. I think previously, you know, I sent to the Planning Commission before their review, I sent them an analysis that I did regarding one property owner's question. It took me 2 or 3 days to figure out how to answer that question. So it's just very complicated, and our ordinance unfortunately has to mirror to some extent what the state law says, including all its complications. But I think we can come back with something that will be workable. You may not be happy with it, but it'll be something we can send to HCD.
Right.
And,
Thank you very much, Brian. Yeah, we really do appreciate you.
Thank you.
And all of the work that has gone into this and all of the meetings that have been had. Okay, so we look forward to a second reading at our October meeting.
Well, Deb mentioned that you might want to come back with a revision that would be a first reading because of the changes that have been suggested.
Could we do that with a special meeting?
No, you can't adopt an ordinance at a special meeting. You know, let's look at it when Brian makes the changes, if there's changes, whether they're substantial or not. I mean, he was talking about going through every section and, you know, changing things. And to me, like an and or a, you know, a little thing added is not a substantial change. But, you know, if there's multiple sections that have multiple changes, I think you need to come back again with the first reading.
Yeah, it's a good point. We'll just see what it looks like. And then,
so if it's not substantially different, we could vote on it in October?
Well, you'd have to pass it tonight. You'd have to pass this first reading with what's there. And then, you know, if Brian has a couple of changes for the next meeting, then we'll look at them to see if they're substantial and it's a first reading or a second reading, depending on the changes. But you need to pass it tonight if you want this to be the first reading in the form that it's in.
Okay.
Yeah, and I consider changes, for example, if there are changes in response to Ms. Vonk's comment about detached and converted accessory dwelling unit height design review, that to me is not a substantial change. That's just applying a standard that's already in the ordinance a little bit further. So, just for example.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to introduce an ordinance to the first reading of the ordinance amending section 112910 to delete reference to second units, repealing section 110450 and adding a new section 110450 to the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code to conform with state regulations relating to accessory dwelling units. I have a motion on the floor. Wow. But where do we go from here?
Bring it back for first reading.
Don, we can't hear you, sorry.
Bring it back for first reading.
Yeah, that's the alternative.
Okay, so we'll bring it back in October for a first reading. Can I have a motion to bring it back in October for a first reading?
I will make a motion to bring it back in October for the first reading.
Thank you very much. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Councilmember Edge?
Yes.
Councilmember Flores? Can't hear you, Cesar, sorry.
Ms. Hart, can you please repeat your vote? We can neither see nor hear you.
I'll come back. Councilmember Friels,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
But we need a
My
vote.
vote was yes, but
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Freeman,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Deborah.
And thank you.
Thank you, council members. Thank you, community. Action item 6A, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista approving a San Benito County Economic Development Corporation grant in the amount of $5,000. This was a continuance from our August meeting. Go ahead, City Manager.
Brian, did you want to introduce this item with Mark Fontes?
Yes, sure. This is the EDC's program to do a comprehensive economic development strategy for San Benito County and including San Juan Bautista as a participant in terms of our contribution and also in terms of our economic interests. Mark Fontes is still here, I think. And Mark is prepared to give a brief summary of the need for the grant match.
Welcome, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us and hanging in there this evening.
Well, thank you and good evening to Mayor and City Council members and staff. I think what I'd like to do is just really focus a little bit on what this means potentially for San Juan Bautista as well as the rest of the county. The Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, referred to as the CEDS, and this is the EDA's term, is a mandatory obligation in order for any jurisdiction within the county to pursue EDA funding. So we currently have a CEDS in place. It was done back in 2016, 2017, but the CEDS has a 5-year life. So it basically ends in 2022, and we are looking at doing the next 5-year CEDS from 2022 and 5 years into the future. So realistically, right now in particular, the city of San Juan Bautista, as well as the other jurisdictions in the county, are able to apply for EDA funding because of the fact that we have a CEDS in place. And that is extremely significant because as part of the American Rescue Plan Act, in addition to the other funding that's been made available, the EDA itself received $3 billion with a B in new additional funding for projects and programs, and they have that funding available right now. Looking to the future, 2022, 23, 24, if you, in effect, make this a bit of investment with the EDC, the end result will be is that we will apply for the funding for the planning of the CEDS, which we are told by EDA staff is pretty much a straightforward process with them. We would expect that early next year, we would have the funding approved and then would proceed to hiring a consultant and then working on the new 5-year CEDS. So realistically here, yes, we are asking for a small contribution, and what you get in return is literally the ability to apply for and hopefully receive EDA funding for a wide variety of projects and economic development activity. And the ability that you would have to do that would then be extended until 2027. So realistically, we do receive our funding from both the city of Hollister and the county. And so in effect, the other funds, even though they're coming from the EDC, came from those two sources to begin with. So we're here tonight to request $5,000 in funding to get us to the $20,000 match that we need to have in order to proceed with the updated SEDS. And the end result is, in addition to the regional planning effort, the EDA funding would be available to San Juan Bautista and the other jurisdictions in the county for an additional 5 years past 2022. So that is the basis of our request this evening.
Thank you very much for that. Questions, comments, concerns from the council? Councilmember Edge.
Just a question. You said something about $3 billion, did you say?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Now, we're not really looking at that amount, are we?
Well, that's what was approved by the federal legislature. So that is what is possible, and that funding is available nationwide. But
okay.
I think the real point is that in addition to the normal funding that EDA has on an annual basis, they now have significant additional funding right now.
Okay. So of that, if it were to be $3 billion, how much would San Juan Bautista benefit from that?
It would depend on the specific project that was, or program that was being applied for. So it would be on the basis of what the cost of that would be. So for example, if you had a project and you seek EDA funding of $100,000, you're going to require to provide a 20% match, but then you would get a net of $80,000 in new funding for an identified project or program.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Flores?
No questions.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Friels?
Thank you. This is probably not a guaranteed, I'm guessing it's not guaranteed that we'll get money. We're just kind of putting a $5,000 retainer out there in hopes that we put all our ducks in a row on our application and we get it. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is correct. I can tell you, if you take the time to look at the EDA website, you can read the list of projects that they are approving every week. So there are numerous projects that are being approved, but you are correct. There is no guarantee.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman?
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for the great presentation. As I remember, back in 2016-17, Anthony Botello and I were on the previous reiteration of what I think you called it SIDS or whatever it is. I still have the multicolored, brightly, lots of pictures notebook that was all put together by the previous consultant. I'm not certain that we got a lot out of it, but I think with our new city manager and our new city council, I think we'll be more aggressive on things like that. We have a lot of ideas for parks, and we can certainly use the money in developing them. So I am in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don, we have projects that this could benefit. Unmute yourself,
I should unmute so you can hear me. Certainly we do. And projects on top of that. We've been working with our business forum downtown. We're looking at a 3rd Street master plan. These are all economic development activities. The ARP money can be used to promote tourism, just to have an economic development strategy that promotes tourism. That we put together with our existing partners. Those would all be great tools that would be the benefit of this funding.
Thank you very much. Do we have comments from the public?
No, there are no hands raised right now.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there are no more questions, comments, or concerns, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
I will second it.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out who said what. Trish, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, and this is resolution number 50, 2021-50. Councilmember Edge,
Yes.
Councilmember Flores,
Yes.
Councilmember Friels,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes, thank you very
All
much.
members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Mark, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We appreciate your patience. 6B, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista approving the Luck Park Master Plan. Staff report, City Manager Don Reynolds.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We have Anna Schmitz here from the RRM group. I think there she is. Hi, Anna. Hopefully you have the ability to share your screen. I think I offered that before. Back in July, we took a hard look at the Planning Commission's work on the Luck Park Master Plan. We brought it down to just 1 or 2 issues, and RRM Group has taken the feedback over the past 6 weeks and put it into what we believe is a final version, which would mean we would have a resolution for the council tonight to consider to adopt a final master plan for Luck Park. We do offer an alternative to that master plan because that was the one issue that I'll let Anna speak to. And Anna, are you able to share your screen?
Certainly, Don.
We have just a few slides to run through. This is a culmination of more than a year's work, so thank you for your patience tonight. Go ahead, Anna.
Okay. Says the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Brian, you might have to do that. Brian, can you help Anna? Can you help Anna access the screen sharing? I can't do it anymore.
Okay. Which one are we sharing?
Anna Schmitz. Make her co-host, please.
Oh, yeah, okay. Here we go.
Okay, everybody can see okay?
All good.
All right, Don, take us away, please.
I thought you were doing this. I don't have control over the slides, but yeah.
I'll flip you through.
Okay, sure. This is Luck Park, if you don't recognize it, and the famous fish bike rack. The Luck Park Museum was built in 1919, was originally a standard gas station, which still resides there. The building is now a museum that the Historical Society owns and uses for its archives. The site was donated in 1974 by the Luck family. It has specific deed restrictions on how the property can be used. We've had the Historic Society and the Library Auxiliary weigh in on this plan and give opinions as to our proposed uses in this master plan. The city seeks expansion of the library for community uses, almost doubling its size, and to provide enhancements to the museum building. So we solicited proposals from various architectural firms and awarded the contract to RRM, I'm going to say about 18 months ago. Okay. This is our park, our beloved Luck Park, about 3,000 square feet. Feedback from stakeholders includes museum modernization, access, improving the restroom and drainage, and providing outdoor spaces for community uses, but more passive uses than active uses. Accessible walkways, a stage and performance area is something that came out from our first meeting that we had there in August 2020. Provide low maintenance, drought tolerant landscape, additional parking, and retain existing trees as feasible. And then, of course, enhance the historic assets. Okay, thank you. This is the path that we went through starting in August 2020. We had an interesting Zoom in-person meeting culminating in a lunch and a park walk. I thought it was a really creative way in the midst of COVID to get the community together around this park. We had online surveys and results that we generated from that, all fed into the information. On March 9th, we had a community online meeting to talk about the results of the preliminary conceptual design. And then in May 4th, 2021, we presented the draft master plan. In that effort, I think one of your next slides is going to show that we presented 2 different plans and we took the best from each. And then came to council in July. And so here we are following up on the council's last meeting for approval. Okay, thank you. So yeah, in summary, we have been rigorously engaging the community and welcoming public input and meeting directly with stakeholders throughout the process. And this is our second council meeting now discussing the final plan. Okay. The community survey was both in paper and online. We advertised through website, Facebook, and Instagram. Some of the results that came back are on the next slide. Quiet, peaceful setting. That seems to be the overall majority for this park. We had a number of people requesting basketball and more active sports, and so that's why we're working with other resources now to satisfy that desire, especially basketball. So hang in there. We're working on that. Not at this park. That's kind of the message. We're going to keep this a peaceful park. Things like having a movie night, socializing outdoors, and exercise and workout. We do have occasional Zumba out there already during the weekdays. Walking a pet is something I think most of the residents do. They take their pet, especially the Freemans. I see them out there a lot, walking their pet around Luck Park. Okay. The mature trees, again, what to retain, the open lawn, the Jim Jack cabin, 18%, and the historic fire truck. So, you know, we presented this as a historic fire truck, but it's really a museum for volunteer firefighters. And it's a way of providing shelter for the fire truck so that it can be refurbished. We've had the clampers and other groups come to us and say, we want to donate a bell, we want to paint the truck. It doesn't make sense until we can put it inside a protected area. And we have some examples of that. Go ahead, Anna. So these are the 2 designs from March 9th with different versions of the stage area in the corner of the property facing the library, or the stage area with its back to the library. And the stage area with its back to the library was the most popular of the 2. But we also took some features from Alternative B and combined them with Alternative A, which is how we make sausage in democracy. we take the various feedback and we put it together, and that's what we came to the council with in July, May and July, Planning Commission and then council. Yeah, go ahead, Anna. The stage is located, as we said, with its back to the library with 63% majority. The fire truck and display is near the museum, the gas station. People felt that having the vehicle close to the gas station made sense. And moving the Jim Jack cabin to the state park, that was another idea that was, I think, flatly rejected overall. But those are some of the conversations we've had leading up to our last meeting. Okay, Anna. So there we go. Okay, and we came up with a final draft master plan design. The number 12 in this design was the proposed location for the Jim Jack cabin. And number 8 in this design up towards the left are the existing gas station museum is the proposed volunteer firefighter museum. You see the additional parking along the bottom. There's some really creative use in number 1 in the amphitheater. That's the primary feature. And this design, it leaves the grass as open as possible for people to see and view entertainment at the amphitheater. So that's what's nice about the way things are spread out in this design. But there was a lot of discussion about this, about moving the Jim Jack cabin in particular.
And Don, just to reiterate, the slide that folks are looking at right now, the draft master plan concept, was a result of this is what was brought to Planning Commission initially. So there was another round of revisions after this that summarized the Planning Commissioner's comments, as well as additional stakeholder comments, as well as the public input. So all of those comments and revise that last plan you saw. And we go through these, but some of those items were the fire department was removed from the plan, the stage and performance area got smaller, the landscapes throughout the park grew in size, and more were added. There were comments to minimize the hardscape and concrete. More decomposed granite paving was requested where feasible. We added things like pedestrian lighting, historical pedestrian lighting. There were additional enhancements to the Jim Jack cabin setting that included seating and even more interpretation. And then things like naturalized meadow and wildflowers were added to the expansion entry to celebrate Jim Jack's legacy. We also added more seating to the playground. Some of the natural play features were reduced in size, and then the fire truck structure that Don has described was refined to include roll-up doors and transparency. And of course, all of the additional mature trees were preserved wherever feasible. Right now, there is only 3 trees to be removed on the park site. Okay, so that will bring us to the draft final master plan concept that was presented at City Council last time. Don?
Thank you, Anna. Melanie's not here today. So yes, so this was our final presented to the council. You can see how the fire truck is now protruding out of number 8 with easy access onto the road to be used in parades and so forth. And that's where the bell would go. The clampers are anxious to restore the bell and the volunteer bell. And then the Jim Jack has its own little plaza at number 12 on the 2nd Street side. And that was the real focus of attention when the council looked at this in July. So as an alternative to that, and maybe you want to discuss these alternatives, Anna, because you and Melanie created them.
Certainly. As a response to the comments that we received during our last council hearing presentation, there was a lot of concern about relocating Jim Jack cabin on the project site. And I believe it was Chairperson Mr. Friels that questioned, rightfully so, why are we moving the cabin at all? And so we did exhibit, as many of those options were already ran through in the previous public meetings, and that included alternatives that had some of these features in different areas that the public voted on and commented on. We kind of went in reverse a little bit and showed an alternative of the previous master plan that you just saw that showed what the plan could look like if Jim Jack cabin was to remain in its current location on the park site. So what you're seeing here is a reduced event lawn to accommodate the Jim Jack cabin here, which would of course need some amount of access to it in and around it. You would also need some room for interpretation and maybe some seating, which were all amenities that we wanted to add to the Jim Jack cabin so that people understood and could enjoy his legacy. And that necessitated pulling out the fire truck enclosure or the fire engine museum that Don described and relocating that feature over to the new community use expansion building, where it would have access to the street. And some of those features that were shown here in the previous plan were removed to accommodate that shift in location of the fire truck museum and Jim Jack to remain. And also the flagpole that was part of the fire truck museum in this slide just gets moved to this entry here. So that is the alternative plan that we're presenting to you based on the comments
Don?
Great, thank you. So this is what we had in mind. This is a small town in Oregon that made a volunteer fire department museum using their antique fire truck, restored and used for parades. This door rolls up and they can put the truck into action. So, and it's surrounded with windows so people can see in it when it's not available to the public. And then this whole back section is full of photos and collectibles that the volunteer firefighters have had over the years. So I just wanted to emphasize that's our intent. And that's why we felt the fire truck exhibit was consistent with the historic nature of the park, because this was our intent. It's not just a parking lot for an old truck. Anyway, that was my 2 cents. That's my editorial. So we have two plans before you. The feedback we received after council seemed to be lucrative either way about whether or not to move the Jim Jack cabin. Of course, if it were relocated, it would be done with historically sensitive hands and placed and restructured such as it was originally. It's in a new location. So these are the features that we have, and we're just asking council to deliberate on which they prefer, the master plan or the alternative master plan, and take it from there. See if we can get a master plan adopted tonight. So we're here to facilitate that conversation without a little bias. And Mayor, I'll let you steer it from here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks, Anna. Questions, comments, and concerns from the council. Councilmember Edge.
Hi, thank you, Anna, for it's a great concept. I like the way, well, what I'm looking at right here, the fire truck is not where I thought it was going to be, because the Jim Jack cabin was going to stay. It's going to stay where it is, right? There it is. Is this what we're talking about? This concept?
We're discussing either one, the draft final as an alternative,
okay.
or the previous one, that one.
Well,
yeah, either one of those.
Yeah, I like this one. I don't see why we need to move the Jim Jack cabin. And then I can see the truck in an enclosure. And I like that enclosure, Don. That's very nice. But yeah, I'm happy with this one right here, with being the final draft. And I don't have any questions, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Flores. Hey, sir, we can't hear you. And it could be your cell service too, because you've been going in and out. Councilmember Friels, we'll come back to Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Mary on the alternative plan. My big fear is moving the cabin. It was originally placed there, I believe, as an Eagle Scout project in conjunction with the Historical Society. It's pretty much their relic, and I know that they want it to stay there. I'm just worried about moving it and the damage that could be done. I know there's professional movers out there, but you're talking dollar signs too. So, and I like the way the park looks. It's either way, it's going to be beautiful, but I'm all for the alternative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman.
Scott and Mary are for the alternative where the fire truck is out front. The Jim Jack cabin remains where it is. And just to comment to the manager, We have a well-read dog. He enjoys going to the library. Thank you.
I missed that last comment.
It's kind of a joke. We have a well-read dog. He likes going to the library.
Thank you for that. Vice Mayor Flores, are you available?
I am.
Questions, comments,
You hear me?
concerns? Yes,
Yes.
Hello,
we can hear you.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, oh, no comments. I'm going with alternative.
You like the alternative as well? I think he said yes, he wanted the alternative. Can I ask where the I can't understand them. Where the cabin came from originally? I know it was voiced once upon a time. Where? Does
As
anybody
I
have that?
remember, it was at the public works yard for a long time, and about 15 years ago, I moved to the library.
Okay, thank you for that. And Don, do we have a cost on moving it?
No, we haven't gotten to that level of detail.
Okay. Okay, thank you. For some reason at this bird's eye view, I like the other plan. And I understand where, I don't know what the difference is. It's aesthetically pleasing at this view. Thank you very much for the presentation. I have no other questions. And Trish, I understand that we have a comment from Emily Renzel. If you can read that into public record.
Certainly. All right, so, dear members of the council, here are the comments I sent in July. I'm pleased that you have an option, that retains the Jim Jack cabin in its current location, and I hope you will support that option. Emily Renzel. Due to a conflicting meeting, she's not able to attend. This was July. Excuse me. In general, the consultant has developed a plan that responds to a wide range of public comments. It retains quite a lot of green space and trees, provides some multi-purpose picnic/game tables, and it appears to support this as a passive park. And I believe it recommends reinstating the prior restroom at the Luck Museum. Paramount to any decision about Luck Park are the terms of the Francesca D. Luck bequest on January 16, 1974 of that block of land to the city of San Juan Bautista for the sole purpose of a park, library, and museum. To wit, number 2, said real property above described and accepted shall be distributed intact and in its entirety to said city of San Juan Bautista to be by it held, used, and maintained exclusively by it for the sole purpose of the construction and maintenance therein of a public library, public museum, and public park in memory of my father, Carl Martin Luck. The city council acts as trustee for Ms. Luck's bequest. It would be a lack of good faith to do otherwise. The final draft master plan should comport with Ms. Luck's bequest, and in most respects it does. That said, the will says nothing about a community center or garage for a fire truck. A community room as part of the library makes sense, and in my opinion would meet the terms of the will. But near doubling of size of the library for community uses is vague and probably goes well beyond the library, park, and museum uses contemplated by Ms. Luck. Community use has many definitions. For example, community use means a use which has the primary purpose of serving the educational, religious, recreational, or governmental needs of the general community, including but not limited to churches, educational institutions, parks, public parks, buildings and facilities, and cemeteries. Number two, community uses are those uses in a particular locality which provide services or facilities such as health or social services or meeting facilities to those who live or work in that locality. Number three, community uses includes childcare center, community activity center, community theater, cultural facility, educational establishment, facility, hospital, places of worship, and religious associated use. The use of the addition to the library should be clearly related to and subordinate to the library. It should be defined and limited to the intent of Ms. Luck's bequest. Similarly, a garage for the old fire truck does not need to be on public park land. For many years, this truck resided at the city's corporation yard. That is where the garage should be built. Finally, the Jim Jack cabin was moved to its current site near the museum by the San Juan Bautista Historical Society and at its expense. It makes no sense to move it to the opposite corner of the park. It should be retained in its current location and highlighted by improved interpretation and landscaping. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this draft plan. Sincerely, Emily Renzel.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other public comment?
Yes, I believe we have Vanda Guibert. And I will allow her to talk.
Thank you. Welcome, Vanda.
Okay. Thank you. Hello again, City Council and staff. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad to have this opportunity to reiterate that the Historical Society actually owns the building. We bought it, actually, I shouldn't say it's a communal we. Georgiana, when she was, with the Historical Society from the very beginning, the Historical Society then bought the cabin from Maria Giorgi near the Mission Vineyard Road. And it was moved, I think it might have been disassembled and moved to the city yard where it resided for a number of years. And then probably in about 2005, the Historical Society again paid for its move, restoration, and what was the other word I was going to use? Was relocated. And it was an Eagle Scout project. Harvey Sandoval's Eagle Scout son participated. And this was at no expense to the city. And none of our adventures have ever been at the expense of the city. Our members paid for the new roof on the Luck Museum. So we really would prefer to see the Jim Jack cabin stay where it is, which is where it was originally decided to be, close to the Historical Society, where we can interpret it. And we've just been in contact with regional and cultural historian Sandy Leiden, who is going to facilitate the re-roofing of the Jim Jack with redwood shingles as it had back in 2005. And he's going to do the interpretive panel along with Georgiana. And this is her baby. She's, Jim Jack is her passion. She's very interested in it. She respects and honors his contributions to San Juan, which were many. And anyway, we prefer the alternative, and we're happy, at least personally on my own behalf, I'm happy that the historic fire truck will have a place to be. It deserves its own secure place where it'll be much better preserved than it had been in the city yard, and that it is currently in the portico of the Luck Museum. So I think that's all I want to add. And thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the council who've already viewed the alternative as the better choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment?
Jackie Morris Lopez.
Thank you. Welcome, Jackie. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council and staff. I think both plans are just equally, beautiful. And I'm really happy to see that there's going to be, a quiet space. The talk of basketball courts and such to me just didn't fit in line with the library and the museum there. And I think that both plans look great. But in respect to the move of the Jim Jack cabin, I don't like the bareness around it, but I think because it is a fragile building, it was placed there by the Historical Society. It's been their baby for a long time, for a few decades, it seems. I think it should remain there, but I honestly don't like the brown around it. So hopefully when they do finalize the interpretive surrounding around it, there will be less brown and hopefully flowers and benches and whatnot. And I think it's a great idea that we also protect the fire truck. I think both plans, like I said, are fine, but I honor the Jim Jack cabin to stay where it is, and the people that put their hard effort behind moving it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment?
No, there are no other hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Okay, I will call for a motion to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista approving the Luck Park Master Plan.
I would like to make that motion to adopt the draft final master plan, the alternative plan.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Councilmember Edge?
Yes.
Councilmember Flores?
Yes.
Councilmember Friels?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan? I'm sorry, one more time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to RRM for the great efforts that they have gone through with listening to everybody involved, the community, the Historic Society, the council, the Planning Commission. We appreciate everything you have done and are very much looking forward to seeing this part come to fruition.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Okay, discussion item 7A, update on water and wastewater distribution system enhancements and compliance with the Environmental Protection Agency. Staff report, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you can see my sheet. There we go. Okay. Right. So what's happened with wastewater and water in the last month? A lot of things have been happening, and I'll share with you. I think we're coming to a critical point in this year-and-a-half-long project of complying with the EPA's standards and fixing our water system. So with that, as the council knows, the Hollister signed the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, in September 7th and agreed to accept our wastewater. Now we have an executed MOU for both projects, both to receive imported source water and to export our wastewater. A couple weeks ago, I sent a detailed letter to each of our 3 industrial users who send us domestic wastewater. And since that time, we caught their attention and we've had some very productive discussions. They are interested in working with us. There's mixed response as to who would create the new infrastructure that is required to join them out on San Justo Road as our pipeline would go past the existing Coke lift station. We have some huge discrepancies. In the past 2 months, we've been receiving more than 60,000 gallons a day from the Coke lift station, and one industrial user insists that they're not sending more than 12,000 gallons a day, and the other is sending 3,000 gallons a day. So we have a huge discrepancy. However, it's their company that they're paying to send us these records. So we send a bill every month to the industrial users, and we just received a $38,000 check for the month of July from Earthbound Farms. So at the same time, they're telling us they're not sending 56,000 gallons in July, they're only sending 12,000 gallons in July. So I need to get the vice president in tune with the finance department and then figure this out. So we still have a lot more discovery to do. But the good news is that they want to be a fair player. They want to participate. They understand the bind that the city's in. And I think we're moving forward rapidly on a fast pace. I met for an hour today with Koch Farms and their president of operations, and they had been talking with Earthbound, and so the conversations are moving forward. But I just want to make it clear, our limits are so tight. Our total dissolved solids, our salt, is restricted to 250 milliliters per gallon, and both True Leaf and Koch Farms pulls out a higher amount than our current limit. So they're flushing toilets at True Leaf with a TDS of 1,200 to 1,300, and then they're simply sending us their domestic wastewater. So it's not as if they're sending us bad water, they're sending us the water that they're pulling out of the ground. So they've already looked into reverse osmosis. They've already looked into ways that they would need to pre-treat their domestic water in order to make it acceptable, not just to us, but as we said in the MOU, acceptable to Hollister. That's our goal now, is to get folks in compliance with the new Hollister standards. So we've been adjusting our schedules, but now that we're on track, it looks like our design will be 30% completed by October. And that's important because that's when the price estimates that we started with in February can now be revised and updated. And I'm optimistic. I've been accused of being optimistic that maybe the prices on the force main will come down. We have managed to design a route for our pipeline through county roads so that we're not buying any right-of-way or negotiating for any of that. That also minimizes our environmental impact. The environmental impact studies should also be done in October, and those are two critical tools that we'll need to apply for funding. I was supposed to receive a draft rate study Monday, and I'm told I'm going to receive it tomorrow morning. But in lieu of having that, I have the tables. So the rate study studies all of the city's costs and uses the master plans to project those costs into the next 5 years. The rate study is, we're in a catch-22 here. In order to receive grant and loan funding from state and federal agencies, they expect us to have an approved rate study. And so for that reason, the rate study has been drafted in a worst-case scenario. Because if we can't demonstrate to the USDA, the State Revolving Loan Fund, that we have the capacity built into our system to manage this debt ratio, then we can't pay the debt. So we have to have a rate study that has this worst case scenario to it, because we have to convince our funders that we have the ability to pay the loans back over time. If approved, it'll effectively pay for the city to exit wastewater treatment altogether. So that's the thing. We're looking at a rate study with a worst case scenario in it, that if we do approve it, we'll never be buying infrastructure like this again for wastewater. We'll make this investment now and then be maintaining lift stations and collection systems, and we won't have to maintain the wastewater treatment plant any longer. So that's the ultimate goal. So with that, we have not increased our rates since 2019. We could have increased them by the cost of living in 2020 and in 2021. The rates are increased in 5-year increments. So the last time we did a rate study was 2014. And we used something referred to as an equal dwelling unit system, an EDU, that takes the volume used by especially the larger consumers and creates an EDU per household. So right now we're charging every household, residential house, $83.61. That's a flat rate. And the EDUs take the average daily household and apply it to the larger volumes. So when we get 56,000 gallons per day from one of these industrial users, we use this system to equalize it and to make sure that everybody's paying the same exact rate. So as I mentioned, we're negotiating now with the 3 industrial users, and that will be key to bringing things home for us. Just the same, we received this estimation of the needs to increase our rates. We're carrying about a 1.25 or 1.35% debt ratio. So they want more than 100% coverage to loan us money. And it's estimated by Bartle and Wells, who did our last study and has been doing these for a number of years. We would require close to 14% a year for the first 4 years in this worst case scenario. So you're seeing that go up $12 next fiscal year, and then up $14, and then up $15, and then $17, and then a 5% increase they're projecting for fiscal year 25-26. That's a steep increase. That's a lot. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this rate study, if approved by the voters, we would take it back to the USDA and back to the SRF, and we would get rates that are more favorable than this worst case scenario anticipates. So this is all to be borne out in a 6-week long effort between the city, pretty much starting tonight, but originally, but in full gusto on October 7th. So this is why it's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario estimates a 2.5% conventional financing. So if we didn't get any help from the USDA, if we didn't get any help from the State Revolving Loan Fund, we could still afford a conventional loan at about 2.5%. And that would also double the closing costs, because when you're paying private banks to close a loan like that or to sell bonds, the closing costs go up automatically. So that raises our percent increase 2% by itself. So, but our strategy is to get lending at 1% or below, and that's where the SRF funds have been. The USDA offers a 20% grant match. You saw in the list of grants that we're looking for, that we are looking for more grants than loans to reduce that 14%. So that's the target, and we're chipping away at it as much as we can. We have $100 million, we have $1 million earmark in through Congressman Panetta, and the federal government's balancing its budget now. So I did inquire to see if our little earmark was still alive. And then, of course, we have on our horizon this infrastructure bill. So this bottom paragraph is all the reasons that 14% is high. And I think we'll do better than that. It's my goal. It's probably my future in San Juan Bautista to knock that down to a reasonable number. But we're going to have to pay something. And so this is a window into the future and of what we're bringing forward in terms of how are we going to pay for these improvements. So the rate study for approval requires a Proposition 218 voting process where paper ballots are mailed to each subscriber, over 800 subscribers in our system. Requires a majority vote to be approved. The ballots would be mailed out after a town hall meeting scheduled for October 7th. They have 45 days to return the votes, and then they're opened in a public hearing setting. So we would start at a town hall meeting with much of the same information and allow the community to ask questions and to talk, and then see if there's some great ideas that we can implement to make changes. We can continue that council discussion October 21st and even schedule a second town hall meeting October 28th if the council so chose. So I wanted to introduce the rate study to the council tonight, and I can get the tables out to you and hopefully a narrative in draft form later this week. So that's really, that's my next big deal. We got the MOU signed, and now we've got to get the rate study approved so we can get our financing plan, our technical studies, and our environmental to these lenders and grant opportunities by the end of the calendar year. That's critical. If we get them together by the end of the calendar year, then our funding should be in place to initiate construction early in 2022, in the spring of 2022. That way we have more than a year to complete our project before the compliance deadline. So that's it in a nutshell on the wastewater and the rate study. So our next critical step then towards transforming the wastewater infrastructure is super important process to understand. We'll be meeting the approved EPA compliance objective. We're going to get out from under the discharge of effluent water into the creek. We're no longer going to be discharging into the creek. And we'll end our industrial waste from entering town. we're going to capture it out on San Justo Road so that the smell of that sulfur doesn't have to come into our city any longer. And of course, we'll no longer be suffering fines for the discharge into the creek, regardless of how good or bad it is. We would have no more regulatory oversight in terms of the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, and that would be forever. So I just want to emphasize that this is a transformational process. It's not like the price going up at the gas station. No, this is a whole new type of gas. This is saying we're going to Tesla, baby. So anyway, it's getting late, so I'll keep going. Okay, on the water side, the San Benito County Water District is on time to meet the design goals. We meet with the EPA every quarter, and they're providing status reports for us. They have secured the right-of-ways and easements that held them up earlier in the summer. Their environmental studies are underway, and they're seeking grants and loans and funding to help that project as well. The citizens of San Juan Bautista contribute to a groundwater program, and they have been for a decade or more. And so we have a commitment from the water district to use some of those funds as a down payment on this program. So the water is coming at us at the future cost of our fresh water is coming at us at a slower pace because we had that $1 million buffer there. So perhaps what's necessary to consider rate increases for the water in 3 to 4 years. And we're going to put that off until we get something more certain from the water district as they nail down their project. But they're also looking at that 30% completion in October. So that's really the important thing to keep in mind. So that's a lot to tackle for water, but with Brian's help, I've had a chance to focus on it, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Thank you very much for that. Questions, comments, concerns from the council. Councilmember Edge.
No, I don't have. Thank you, Dawn. You work so hard. Thank you very much. And I'm really happy, and I can hardly wait until all of this is over.
Me too.
Absolutely. Vice Mayor Flores.
Okay.
Is he still with us?
He's raised his hand.
Vice Mayor Flores.
Oh, he came in. Okay.
I don't see him.
Yeah, he's coming back right now. He should be back.
There he is. There he
I
is.
keep being kicked out. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Questions, comments,
Get
and
kicked out
concerns
every
on water and
5 minutes.
wastewater?
No, good project. Good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councilmember Friels?
No questions. Thank you, Don. Thanks for holding the big three over there in the north of me to their feet to the fire. I appreciate you doing that. Thanks.
Councilmember Freeman? I don't see him. Councilmember Freeman? Did we lose him as well?
I guess so. I only show 8 panelists.
Yeah, I don't see him. Darn it. I'm looking forward to the town hall meeting on the 7th. This is well done and sorely needed for this community. Thanks for this. I appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure.
Any public comment?
No, there's no public comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Update on COVID.
Real quick, pursuant to Municipal Code 5-33040A, the director, the city manager shall request the city council to review at least every 21 days until the local emergency is terminated, the need for continuing the local emergency. and we are continuing the local emergency again this month, as the state of California is still in the state of emergency, and our public health office is following the state orders. I glanced quickly at the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department today. 88 active cases, which was down from 123 in August. 16 new cases today. So hopefully it is stabilizing. We'll continue on a downward trend. I thought this statistic was very telling. 290 were hospitalized that were non-vaccinated, 4 hospitalized that were vaccinated. So that's a pretty loud and clear message of trying to encourage our loved ones and friends to get their vaccinations. There is a new round of business grants being offered through the California Small Business Portal. This is a press release borrowed from Mark Fontes and the EDC, between $5,000 and $25,000. The nice part about this 9th round is that it's not determined on first come, first served basis. So people that were on existing waiting lists will be reconsidered for this round. And so that's good to know. And that they have time to make a new application. It closes September 30th. So that's good to know. I wanted to get that out there. And then we have a nonprofit and cultural institutions. The deadline was extended through September 30th. So nonprofit cultural institutions with any revenue size that meets the eligibility criteria, they can find an opportunity for grants here as well. So these programs are still out there and we're tracking them as best we can. And that's my last slide, Mayor.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Questions, comments, concerns? Councilmember Edge.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Flores.
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friels.
Just thank you, Don, for keeping up with all this COVID stuff. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Don. Okay, final comments from the City Council. Councilmember Edge.
I'm happy to be back. Although I'm tired, I wiped out.
Oh my gosh, I bet.
Anyway, thank you, everybody. It was a great meeting. We covered a lot.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Flores.
Thank you all for your hard work, and glad to see you back, Mary.
Thank you. Councilmember Friels.
I'll bring the same bell there. It's good to see you back, Mary. I have one request. I'm terrible with acronyms, especially state level stuff. So some of them get me a little lost. So as much as possible, Don, can you kind of put a little parentheses in on, what some of these state acronyms are? So that way I don't seem so dumb over here. Thank you.
Sorry, Scott. My pleasure. Sorry about that.
That would be helpful, but I never remember. I read it and then I just think they relieve me.
Thank you. Thank you all. I just have one comment, and sorry, it's kind of long. But as a vice mayor and now as a mayor, I've been an integral part. It's really late for me here, and I'm on the East Coast. An integral part of the city's response to the pandemic, the shelter in place, and the many efforts that our business owners and business communities have had during these challenging times. I've served on the city's business forum meetings every Wednesday at 9, and on the Parklet meetings every Thursday at 9. And for more than a year, our business community has asked for open conversations. And so I'm proposing that the city take more focused look at economic development and elevate its importance. The past couple of months, the Business Forum has reported a continued stress for them, trying to survive in a very less than lucrative economic environment. And at the last meeting, they expressed a desire to become a permanent stakeholder in that decision-making process and to actually have a seat at the big kid table. They've expressed that the time has come to forego emergency response to business needs and begin to develop long-term meaningful forms of resilience. So tonight I'm asking the council to bring to staff at a future discussion or even a special meeting on the topics of how the city can use its ARP funds or other resources to develop permanent economic development efforts in our town, unique to our city's business ecosystem. And some of those things would be creating a standing city council committee on economic development, invite and retain the services of small business specialists to help our business owners, write an economic development action plan, invite leaders from an established business association to share their stories, similar to the Salinas City Business Center District Chair and Vice Chair, who have done amazing things in that city sustainably and continuously. Invite consultants to speak about the vibrant downtown and key elements of the Little Italy project. Seek funding through the EDA, partnering with the county EDC, and host an economic development forum with guest speakers like the ones I mentioned above. So if at some point we can get together and perhaps at a special meeting, have the business community as forming an economic development system. So if we can put that to the staff to do. And on that note, there was one other thing. There was a request to change meeting hours from 6 p.m. to 4 p.m. And if anybody else wants to add anything to an agenda item. Having said all of that, any final comments from our city manager?
No, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for hanging in there. I know you're on East Coast time. We appreciate it. And Brian, thank you for your hard work on the ADU ordinance. I know you've pulled out all your hair, obviously. There's nothing
That's why you brought him in. You don't want to lose your hair.
Yeah, right, exactly. Thank you, Deb, for your support.
Brian, any further comments from you? Okay, I'm going to say he said no. City Attorney Deb Mall, any final comments?
Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Any final comments from our Deputy City Clerk?
No, I have no final comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Good
Thank
night,
you for all the hard
everybody.
work that was put into this meeting. I appreciate you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you very much,
A
Scott.
second.
Thank you very much, Mary. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Edge,
Yes.
Councilmember Flores,
Yes.
Councilmember Friels,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Yes, left the building.
and Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
A unanimous consent.
Have a
Thank you
good
all very
night.
much. Have a good
Good
evening.
night, everybody.
Night.